Going to get started now. None of us sitting here has been to an alley or footway appeal before because we haven't had one, I think, since 2021. So I'm just going to wing it and we'll see how it goes. So how about we have the DOT representatives come up. You can come up to the table. And then the appellant, is that you? Are you here for the alley appeal?
No, it's for the property on the house.
For 600 Rapola Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
About 5 of them altogether.
Okay, great. So why don't you, maybe DOT, you guys can share a table, and then the appellant, you can come up and sit here in front of the microphone. And this is recorded, so just when you want to speak, you can turn the microphone on, which means it will be green if it's on. Yeah, you press the button. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, all right, I'm gonna act like the chair right now, and just move forward. So I think what we'll do is start with the DOT side, just to explain what happened here, to give the board any documents that you want the board to have for any of these appeals. For these, we have 4 addresses: 600, 602, 616, and 618 Rapola Street. If there are more, then you can tell us about the one that I'm missing.
And 516 Umbra Street.
Okay, I don't think I have an appeal for that one, but we can get there in a minute. All right, so can you tell us on the DOT side, actually first introduce yourself, like state your name and your position, and then just tell us about these 4 properties in the alleyway appeal?
Okay. Do I have to?
Sorry, the DOT will go first, and then you can talk second, okay?
I can push it again?
Yeah, push it again, go ahead.
Okay.
And you can wait just for a minute, and they'll present first, okay.
Okay, I'm Asha Kumta, working for DOT as a civil engineering and drafting, but I sit on the Board of Appeals for alleys and footways. And we would like to hear from our appellant what is his issue about assessment. I think that's what he is appealing for.
Yes, so I think what we need to hear from DOT is when did the notices go out to this person, and what was the work that took place?
Okay, I'm Michael Donovan with Alleys and Footways, Department of Transportation. We mailed notices out on 3/9/2016 to all the property owners to alert them of a hearing that we're for the alley paving. We had a hearing in April 4th of 2016. The result of the hearing was it was approved, and we paved it. Probably the next year, 2017, it was paved.
Just for the board, and for me too, because I am not as familiar with this process as I would like to be. So you said, okay, you mailed the notices out, you said March 9th of 2016?
Yes, that's
And then
correct.
you had a hearing on April 4th of 2016. So that is, can you describe kind of that process, of your hearing process that you have at DOT?
Well, we have the hearings, so the property owners can come in and ask any questions they have about the work that we're planning to do. And we also give them an opportunity to protest the paving. And if over half the people protest it, we won't pave it. We'll withdraw it from the contract.
Okay.
And if we don't hear from people, we assume they're in favor of it.
So you scheduled the hearing regardless. You schedule it for every alley that you're going
It's
to
correct,
pave?
yes.
Okay. And then, do you know if anybody showed up to this particular hearing?
Only one protest, right?
There's only one protest out of the 20 property owners.
Okay.
And actually, Mr. Angelopoulos, is that correct? Is that your name? He approved all 4 of his properties,
Okay.
which he didn't have to do because if we don't hear from them, we assume they're in favor, but he wanted to make sure, so he approved it.
Okay.
We do that too.
Do the board members have any questions for the DOT folks?
No.
Okay. Okay, what would you like to tell us? You can turn your microphone on and state your name, please.
My name's Chris Angelopoulos. I own 5 properties, 4 which are on 600 block Wall Street. Oh, I'm sorry, need to press it again.
Yeah.
I'll start over. My name's Chris Angelopoulos. I own 4 properties on 600 block of Rapola Street and 1 on the 500 block of Umber Street. I filed for appeals late this summer, and it got rescheduled today regarding the increase in the property taxes. All of mine increased between $18,000 and $20,500, which I thought was inordinately large. I've never seen an increase like that before. And I thought that there was a limit as to the percent that it could rise over the 3-year period. I thought it was capped at 10%. Mine have all somewhere between 16 and 18%.
Well, okay, well, we don't have any jurisdiction over the property tax rates or the assessments. That happens with some other agency that is not us. But, so we're here to talk about the specific alley appeal, the assessment that was issued to you for your 4 properties on Rapola Street, which I think, I'm reading, let me give you a copy of what you submitted to us, which you might have already. And in your appeal, you said that you thought that it was going to cost $100 per
Yes,
residence.
per house on the alleys.
So essentially,
I
it would end up
misread it.
about $400 for all 4, but instead it was about $400 per,
Yes, it
per
was
house.
$1,635 altogether for all 4 properties.
Okay.
One of them was a corner, and it was a little bit more than $400. The other ones were $400 even. And the reason that I sent for that is because there's a couple of major cracks already in the alley. It wasn't very well done compared to a lot of other alleys that I've seen in the neighborhood. One of the cracks is about where my personal house, which is 616, borders the next house. We are opposite the Harbor Tunnel wall. So there's really not another block of homes. There's the Harbor Tunnel running through in the back.
okay. Any questions from the board?
No.
Okay.
Well, I got one. Did you speak?
Can you turn your microphone on, please? Thank you so much.
You went to the hearing, right? Did you speak to anyone? I noticed you said here in a letter dated 2019, but at the hearing that you went to in 2016, did you ask about the cost?
No, I didn't attend any meeting.
Oh, did I hear that wrong?
We received a letter from him.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a copy of it here.
Where you approved, you
Yeah.
approved it, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes, the getting the cementing done, yes, I approved that. Yeah, I just didn't understand that it was $400 per residence. I thought it was $100 per residence.
And you didn't hear that until you got a letter in 2019 spelling it out, which you said you understood to mean $100 per property. Mm-hmm. You also made a statement about your appraisals increased from 16 to 2019. Is that what you're saying? When you said your appraisals went up 20%?
No, the appraisals are on the current ones for 2023 to 2025.
Oh, okay, which has nothing to do with this.
Right, yeah, it has nothing to do with the alley.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Becky?
Yes.
Okay. Then when we mail the notices out, the assessment cost is already noted on the letters, that how much it is going to cost them. So each letter that was sent out is sent with an amount that it will cost them, or the assessments costs are all noted on those letters for each alley that was to be paved.
Okay. All right. Board have any more questions for either the Asha or Michael or the appellant?
No.
Okay. Seems fairly straightforward what happened here, I think. So as to how the board decides this, there's no set of approval standards or anything in the code. So it's really completely within the board's discretion whether you grant the appeal, deny the appeal, or grant it in part. I think oftentimes in the past, the board has granted, a certain percentage off for appellants who had, some kind of good faith misunderstanding or something like that. But that's all to say, there's nothing in the code that says these are the factors you have to consider. It's completely within the board's discretion what to do at this point. So I'll leave it to the two of you.
I think if the fees were noted on the notice and he agreed to it in writing, I don't see a good faith argument for why we should accept his appeal or approve his appeal.
What do you think, Mr. Clark?
Well, yeah, because it covers 2 or 3 different periods. I mean, the conversation covered 2 or 3 different periods. I'm glad that we were made aware of the fact that the cost was on the correspondence, or was in the correspondence when you received it. So it's kind of hard to say you thought it was $400. You're saying the way the letter was written. I don't know how, we don't have a copy of that, but I don't know how the Lord, it could have been, if the fee on each property was written in the letter that pertained to each property, if you understand what I'm saying, I don't see how you could have misconstrued that it was only $100. Did it state that it was $100 per square foot or something like that? You think that's what you misunderstood?
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was based on the square footage that had to be done, because half of the alley is up against the Harbor Tunnel wall, so that really belongs to the state, the way I understand it.
Yeah, we're not the state. See, we're in an awkward position because of the fact that we don't have authority on all of the things that you're addressing. We're here to talk about whether or not we should be able to remedy this by giving you some relief on what you thought was an excessive bill. So at that case, the only supporting documentation or testimony that has been passed to us is that you were notified and told how much each would cost. And in that case, I'd have to side with my colleague here and deny the case, or deny the appeal.
Okay.
So I'm a no.
Okay. Okay, so
I'd
it
have to be
sounds like
at
the
this case,
appeal,
yeah, I'd have to be a no also.
all right, in that case, the appeal is denied for this matter, and we'll send out a a notice confirming that to DOT and to the appellant in this case. I think, not to prolong this any further, but I think going forward, Asha and Michael, are we keeping copies of the actual assessment that has been sent out to the appellant so that we can actually see?
I have a sample copy.
A sample copy, but not the copy that, that this particular appellant would have received?
Yeah, we will keep, but this is one that we received for the protest. but we
Yeah.
have like a sample.
Okay,
I have all of mine as well, the old ones and the newer ones for 23 to 25.
okay. So you have the notices there that you received that show the dollar amounts for each property?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, each one's individual.
Okay.
That's a tax problem.
Oh, those are real estate tax records. Okay, all right. Okay, I think we're done with this appeal. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and we'll send out the decision of the board within, I would say, the next 2 weeks. All right. That was my first Alley and Footway appeal. So we'll go off the record now until the board's general meeting. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready to get started if everyone else is. We ready? We have Frank behind us on video. Hi, Frank.
Hi.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We have to make sure to remember to use the microphones, especially, well, in general today, I will be yelling at you from time to time to turn your microphone on. It's on when it's green. And if you are red-green colorblind, then ask a friend next to you. All right, so this is a general meeting where the board does some administrative tasks before we get to the zoning docket. Generally speaking, the board doesn't hear testimony during this time. We're just going to play some catch up on some resolutions, basically. So the resolutions are under tab 5. Liz and David do not need to participate in this part because these are hearings that have already taken place and we wrote the resolution. So that's why we need Elizabeth and Frank to approve the resolutions that they previously heard. So the first one is 1823 Lancaster Street. This is the deck case that we heard with Elizabeth. We heard it, or the board deliberated on it, I think back in September. It just took a while to write it up. So does anybody, so anybody meaning Leland, Victor, James, or Elizabeth, who is on the phone right now, have any edits or suggested changes to the 2018-150 1823 Lancaster Street?
I don't have any changes.
No.
Nope.
Elizabeth?
I've reviewed, I don't have any changes either.
Okay, great. So I will consider that one approved. Move on to the October 3rd cases. This one Elizabeth was here for as well. Let's start with 1811 Thames Street. This was the famous case about the decks that we heard on a couple different occasions about. The board ended up approving this application and said basically that no variance was required for this appeal based on some technicalities that were in the code that we found. Any edits on that resolution?
No.
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 Okay, moving along, try to keep this going here. Oh, Elizabeth, yep.
No edits.
Okay, thank you. Sorry that I forgot you. 2023-134, this was the Cross Street, Starrett Street case requesting 7 dwelling units for an apartment building, and that required a number of variances. The board granted those variances. Any changes or edits to that resolution?
No. This is 134?
Yeah, 2023-134, the Starrett Street cross street.
No.
case.
I'm fine with it.
Okay,
Good.
Elizabeth?
No,
Okay,
no edit. Thank
great.
you.
No.
Moving on, we have a big backlog. This is not usually how many we have. 2023-147. This was a request to use the first floor as a convenience store, retail sales under the code. And the board ended up approving it subject to a number of conditions, including CHAP, the CHAP regulations, hours of operation, interior and exterior security cameras, lighting. Alley will remain gated, no live ammunition storage on site, no tobacco sales, and no offices. Any edits for that one?
No.
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 No edit.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the 17th of October. I believe Elizabeth was with us again for that case. 4,000 Gwinoak Avenue. This was a request to continue to use the premises for retail sales, but that it was a non-conforming use in an R1 zoning district, so the least dense zoning district. And it had been used as a grocery store for many years, but by all accounts, it had not been used for probably a few decades. And so the board denied the request to continue to use that as a non-conforming retail use. That one is pretty straightforward. Any edits on that one?
Nope.
No.
Nope. 2023-108, 2146 Aiken Street. This was another request for retail sales, convenience store use. There was no opposition, and the board approved the use with a number of conditions relating to exterior lighting, cameras, hours of operation, and no sale of alcohol or tobacco. Any edits on that one?
No.
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 Elizabeth?
No.
Okay, great. 2023-124, 1238, how do we pronounce that? Esquith? Esquith?
Asquith.
Got it, okay. This was a request to use it as a restaurant, first floor as a restaurant. There was some opposition, but the opposition mostly related to outdoor tables, which were not part of the appeal. And the board ended up approving that use. Any edits on that one?
Looks good to me.
No.
Okay. Elizabeth, anything else?
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. I think that's all we need you for. You can hop off if you want, but Frank needs to stay on for a second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we have the appeals from the last set of hearings, November 7th. So going forward, now that we are closer to being fully staffed, the idea is that we'll just go through all the resolutions on the very following
Great.
set of hearings. So that's the goal. We will try to hit that. So we will not have these big, huge backlogs of resolutions in the future. So, and sorry, I had to kick Jim out of his chair because this is the only configuration of my laptop that will work. 38 South Fulton Avenue, 2022-387. This was a request to use the property as 5 dwelling units, which had been the historical use of this property. So the board approved it as a continuation of a non-conforming density. I see one little typo that I want to fix, where there's a period in a place where it doesn't belong, but does anybody else have any edits for this resolution?
No edits.
Okay.
No.
All right, 2023-174, 1109 West Landville Avenue, Landville Street, sorry, which we heard together with 2023-175, 1111 West Landville Street. They're adjacent properties owned by the same person, which will be used for the same thing as offices. And the board heard this and approved both appeals, subject to the fact that we did have some discussions about it not being a healthcare clinic. So does the board have any edits on those two?
No.
None from me.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. 510 Cathedral Street, 2023-181. This was a request to basically build a rear structure, accessory structure, with some variances that were needed for that structure. And the board, after some discussion about the uniqueness of the property, ended up approving that request. Any edits on this resolution?
No.
No edits.
Thank you. Keeping it going here. 1523 East North Avenue, 2023-184. This was a request to use the first floor as a restaurant and retail goods. The actual application was for like a bakery, cafe / cigar shop, I believe, which is allowed by conditional use in the zoning district. And so the board approved that use. Any edits on that one?
None from me.
Okay.
No.
1300 East Preston Street, which is also known as 1300 North Eden Street, 2023-186. This was a request, if you recall, to install a freestanding electronic sign. We went back and forth quite a bit on the details of that sign. They ended up submitting amended plans that showed just an electronic sign without any kind of casing or mixture of sign types that is within the limits that are in the sign section of the code, so they would not need a variance under the updated plans. And what we'll make sure to do is attach those updated plans to the resolution so that people know which one we were referring to when the board approved a conditional use for an electronic sign without the variances. So any edits on that one?
No, ma'am.
Nope.
Okay, last one. 3131 East Monument Street, 2023-191, was a request to use the first floor as retail goods establishment, second floor as an office, both requiring conditional use approval. This was a rehearing of a case that the board had previously approved in 2018, but had been allowed to lapse. And the board heard it again and approved it again. Any edits on that final resolution?
Nope.
No.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Have a great holiday, everybody.
All right, see you
All
later.
right, same to you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we are going to move to the extension requests that are under tab 4. Sorry. Okay, so we have 4 of these. And the approval standards for extension requests is basically just good cause. Essentially, once the board approves a conditional use or a variance, anything that we approve, you have a year as the appellant to either get your use permit or to pull a construction permit to start work on something. It's not good indefinitely. So these people within that year have requested a little bit of extra time to start work on whatever their project was. So again, the standard is good cause, which is very broad. And the board, well, I'll let you decide on each one. So let's start with 2022-302, 101 West Cross Street. Let's see here. So the request is for a conditional use for, I think it was a retail sales. Oh no, it was as a kennel. If you guys remember the cat cafe case, that was kind of a memorable one.
Yeah.
Right, so it was, I think retail sales was allowed by right, but this was, or maybe the restaurant cafe part was allowed by right, but this was a kennel as an accessory use to the proposed restaurant. They have moved forward, they've done interior renovations. Construction is not complete, so they will not be able to obtain a UNO prior to the expiration of their approval. So they are requesting an additional 12 months. This is a first request.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
You guys can vote on this, okay.
No objection.
Great. Remember to use your microphones. All right, so that's 5 votes in favor. Great. Moving on to 2022-385, 3700 Boston Street. This was a height variance to construct a multifamily dwelling. They made, according to this request, they made minor changes to their landscape plan, which caused a delay in the permit's issuance. They anticipate breaking ground in 2024. But they have to have, in order for it not to expire, substantial construction needs to have taken place, and that will not happen prior to the expiration, which was a couple weeks ago. So they're asking for 12 months.
Okay.
And this is a first extension request. They can continue to request extensions after this one as well.
I'm okay with it.
I'm fine.
I'm okay.
No objection.
No objection.
Great. All right, moving along to the third request, 2021-027, 1816 West Lexington Street. All right, so this person, I'm just kind of reading her extension request out loud. She's moved forward. She has passed the inspection of the fire department, installed a French drain. There are a few more items that the inspector requested before she can get approval. Let's see. Biggest item includes installation of a new water heater and some other physical repairs. They need additional time to implement corrections required by the inspector. And wait, this is really old. This can't be the new, sorry. I think this person previously requested an extension and then had to request a second extension. I think this is the first extension that she submitted because this is submitted in April, which is not, it's a long time ago. Let me see if I can find that one and come back to it. Yeah, let's come back to that. Sorry. Let's move on to 2022-272, 2907 O'Donnell Street. An extension of, I think this, yeah, adding live entertainment. They had to go to the liquor board. The liquor board conditionally approved the application. They submitted plans review applications to obtain a new use and occupancy permit, but have experienced delays in scheduling the inspections. That's basically the request on that one. This would be a first extension request.
I'm okay. The only question I had is whether or not it would be shorter period of time, but just can't count on the city and the other agencies and their timeframe, so.
Yeah, we often give, we can give whatever kind of extension we want, but often when we give a shorter extension, we just see them again 6 months later. And, as much as we love doing extension requests, maybe we don't need to. Any other thoughts on this one?
I'm a yes.
I'm fine with it.
I'm good with it also.
Same, no objection.
No objection.
Great, and we'll come back to that third extension request, maybe at the end, if I can figure out what happened there and maybe print out the actual request. So we'll come back to that. Okay. It's time to start the zoning appeals docket. Mr. French, I wanted to see if there's any opposition signed in. Do you have the sign-in sheet handy?
Nobody signed up against yet.
Great. Just looking.
Well, Benning House Road, there's an opposition, at least from Councilman Conway.
Yes, there is a letter from Councilman Conway in your file. All right, so I'll just go through my little script here. Moving on to the zoning appeals docket, good afternoon, and welcome to the November 21st docket for the BMZA. My name is Becky Witt. I'm the executive director to the BMZA. From left to right, up here, we have Leland Shelton, Victor Clark, James Fields, David Marcosi, and Liz Cornish. David and Liz are our two brand-new board members. This is their first set of hearings, and they are kind of working their way through the confirmation process, but they've been appointed as temporary alternates in the meantime. To my left is Jim Allman. He's the assistant counsel to the BMZA. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't done so already. And if you need to have a private conversation with someone, please do so in the lobby. When it's your turn to speak, you can come up here, make sure that your microphone is green, the little light on it is green. You can please state your name and spell your name for the court reporter who's sitting opposite me, and you'll be sworn in to testify. If you haven't already signed in on the sign-in sheet and you plan to speak today, please sign in now. Mr. French is holding it up for me. Everyone who wants to speak should sign in, including attorneys, applicants, opposition, support, etc. The board will likely vote today on your case. We're required by law, however, to issue our decision in writing, in a document called the resolution, which is what we just did. It's a process that takes a few weeks. It needs to be drafted and then reviewed and approved by the board. So we will send those to you via email when they are ready. If you're unhappy about the outcome of your case, you can request reconsideration of the board's decision within 10 business days of the issuance of the resolution, and you also have the right to appeal the board's decision to the circuit court within 30 calendar days of the issuance of the resolution. And that is it from me. I will turn it over to James, the chair.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. We don't have much any opposition in the audience today, it looks like, so I don't need any of those cautions or caveats. We'll just say that please don't commence action on your project before you receive the written resolution, and certainly don't commence any work in Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. With that, we'll call the first case on the docket, 2023-022, 2907 West Belvedere Avenue, Abdo Al-Qader Mozeb, the appellant. Come on up. Anybody here for West Belvedere Avenue? Okay. This is not one that's been here before, is it?
It has been here probably 5 times
Oh,
before,
this is that.
and he never shows up.
Well,
We've been generous and allowed him to
okay,
reschedule
maybe you
many
don't need to
times.
spend-
You should deny it.
It's time to go. It's time for this case to
It might
go.
be 4 times. It's been several times, and then he usually calls like a week later and says, "Oh, I was sick. Can I be rescheduled?" That's what usually happens.
Right. Well,
We'll give it to the end of the meeting.
yeah, show up by the time we clock out, then.
Yeah, we can call it again maybe at the end, see if he is late or something.
All right, but he needs to know this is ripe for dismissal. Okay, case number 2023-177, 900 Cater Avenue, is that right? Stephen Try?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Try, this is a request to use the premises as a residential care facility, with 17 or more residents requiring conditional use approval, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Already. Let's get Mr. Try sworn, please.
Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, so the request is to use the premises as a residential care facility, so that requires conditional use approval. There also is a variance that we caught a little bit later that is required for this approval, which is a minimum lot area variance for the number, let's see. 13,683 square feet is required, 6,383 square feet exists, so it'd be a variance of about 53% based on insufficient lot area. There's an existing multifamily use here, which is non-conforming, and I will leave it there for right now.
Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that this property was last authorized for use as a as a multifamily dwelling with 6 dwelling units and a rooming unit, which are permitted uses in the R5 district. The zoning code does require for a residential care facility lot area comparable to that of a like-sized multifamily dwelling, and therefore the department has determined what your staff has told you, which is that a variance of about 53% is required for approval. And the board may choose to affirm continuing non-conforming status of this structure if multifamily use has not been discontinued. The use as proposed is going to require important sanitation compliance, specifically with the sanitation code of Baltimore City. There is also no available off-street parking on site. Residential care facilities are not required to provide off-street parking if they do not permit residents to have their personal vehicles while they are in residence. The department therefore has no objection to the application. Should the board determine that the application is approvable, the department recommends that approval of this application be subject to these conditions, in addition to any conditions the board may establish. 1, that residents not be permitted to have personal vehicles at the facility. And 2, that the use of the property complies with the terms and conditions of the Baltimore City Code, Article 23, which is the sanitation code. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tri, are you agreeable to those limited conditions?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I just wanted to note that the notes say that there is community opposition. I think that there isn't anything on the record that I know about, that we were just hearing from the councilman that he had heard that there was community opposition. So there's nothing specific on the record that we have from the community, except that I think that there was, and this is obviously through the councilperson's office, I think that there was concern about the existing multifamily use, and that there were existing violation notices for things like high grass and weeds and trash at this location. And this use for a residential care facility of 17 or more residents versus a multifamily dwelling with 6 apartments might be intensifying that kind of use of the property. So
Who's the council person?
I think Conway, 4th District.
Okay. All right. Do we need to know the maximum number of residents? I mean, the note also says maximum number of residents for the proposed use has not been provided.
So, I don't know, maybe I'll ask Mr. French what he thinks. For zoning purposes, we're just divided, residential care facilities are divided into 2 categories, 16 or fewer or 17 or more. So we need to know which category it's in. If it's 16 or fewer, I think it's by right, except maybe that they would still need that variance if it were a larger number of residents. And then if it's 17 or more, then it's a conditional use. But I don't know, Mr. French has some more to say on that.
Or I could just ask him. Well, go ahead.
The department noted that there were floor plans included with this application. Basically, we counted the beds shown on the floor plans. 10 beds in 2 rooms on the 2nd floor level of the structure, 4 beds in 1 room on the 1st floor level of the structure, and 5 rooms with no number of beds in each shown would be provided on level 0, which is the basement of the building. So we count 19 as an estimate.
All right. Mr. Try, is that consistent with your understanding, 19?
It is.
Okay.
And can I say something?
Certainly.
Property was under prior property management from a property management company by the name of Colossal Management.
Yes, sir.
I since took over running it myself. I actually had a hearing with the environmental department to abate any sort of violations on the property. And have since then, been managing the property myself, so we haven't had any violations for any sort of grass or anything of that nature, because I have it on a regular cutting schedule. I also visit the property once a week. There is an issue where I call 311 with dumping in the community that's going on. I did place a sign up there in hopes that, with the notice that there was a camera, in hopes that that would scare somebody. But it still does exist. I do personally pay to have people come and whenever I notice the dumping, because I come once a week, to pick up the items that are left there. And there's a notice that I have in for squatters that were in the property from the other property management company, so I'm working to get them out the property and just bring better use to the property, bring some help to the community in respects to the treatment facility, partnering with KMH Medical Center for that treatment facility, who exists on 5401 Bel Air Road. So just looking to try to make some changes and make the property more viable.
Okay. So how long have you managed it exactly?
The past, I would say 4 months.
And the violation notices, have they been all abated and they've been resolved at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Feel free to pipe up any questions, anyone. I'm just looking at a couple of notes here.
Mr. Try, can you walk us through what waste management facilities that you're going to have on site? Are you using city trash cans? Are you providing a dumpster? In addition to what you were saying in terms of dealing with community dumping.
So we would have to apply for a dumpster for the property because the current use of 6 units would not allow for a dumpster on site per city ordinance. But once the use and occupancy changes, then we'd be able to apply for a dumpster. There's adequate space in the rear of the facility. And we are looking to, if approved, obviously, there's grass, so we're gonna do some construction to remove the grass, pave the whole back parking lot to make a dumpster more accessible.
And in your estimation, before you took over management of the property, was the dumping related to the residents in the property, or was it just community?
It's
Okay.
a community issue where I even installed new fencing at the property to try to prevent the dumping. Local residents cut the fencing and cut a hole in there to continue to dump there on site. But with the building being fully occupied, I don't foresee that dumping taking place. Also, the existing fencing will be replaced with higher wrought iron fencing for security of the residents and just to secure the building. So I think it's going to be hard to kind of put a couch over top of that wrought iron fence.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, so, Ms. Witt, let me just confirm one approach here is to seek to confirm the non-conforming use.
Yeah, let me talk about the variance for a second. So it's not really a non-conforming use, it's a non-conforming density that currently exists. Multifamily dwellings are allowed in R5. They're permitted by right, but it's difficult in those less dense zoning districts because the lot area is so restrictive. So currently, there's 6 dwelling units in this multifamily dwelling. It is non-conforming as to the amount of density. And so what the code requires us to do is basically, since they're asking for a new use, a residential care facility instead of multifamily dwelling, they're saying basically that we have to consider the lot area. You're supposed to compare, like, if nothing existed here, the lot area would be that of a similarly sized multifamily dwelling. I guess what I'm trying to say is the existing structure is non-conforming with respect to lot area, which is why the new use will also be non-conforming with respect to lot area. If the board denies this appeal, it will still be non-conforming as is with respect to lot area. Either way, it's the same measurement. The only reason that we're being asked to look at it again is because the use is changing. If it were continuing as a multifamily dwelling, it would be allowed to continue as a non-conforming density. But it's not the same use, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So it feels like a little bit of a technical point that because the use is changing, we have to look at lot area, but I mean, technically, it is a variance request here.
And technical variance requests, we gotta walk through the variance standards,
Sure.
all right? Hold on a second here. I mean, this is not new to the applicant. Are you aware that there's a variance required here, Mr. Try? Or you?
No.
Yeah, okay. So it's probably not.
It was forwarded to us only, I think, as a residential care facility. I think that our staff caught the additional variance.
Okay.
So probably in the file, it only refers to conditional use.
Right. And so no support for the variance standard. All right. Traffic facility. Where's that fall with the arbor renewal plan? All right.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So in the instance, if we were to apply the code and say that this is a non-conforming use based on the lot size, if it continued to be operated as a 6-unit dwelling, they would also need to come before the BMZA, or no, they would?
They would not, because
Okay.
they, as long as the use is not interrupted, like if it became vacant at some point, they might need to come to us. But the board has been granting those kinds of appeals under the non-conforming density section. So it feels like a weird technicality that we have to be here, because technically, I don't know if I am explaining it well. The density requirements for multifamily dwellings and residential care facilities are the same. It exists as a multifamily dwelling with this number of dwelling units, and so it is non-conforming as a structure. It's not non-conforming as a use, and it's an important distinction. But because they're changing the use, then we have to look at the lot area. I don't know. I don't know if that helps.
But the new use is conforming or
The
non-conforming?
new use would be conditional use. It would be conforming
Okay.
if the board approves the conditional use.
Okay.
And the old use is actually conforming as well. Multifamily dwelling is an allowable use in the zoning district. It's actually permitted by right. It's just that the density is very low in R5.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Try, are you prepared today to talk about why the property is unique for purposes of variance standard? And whether or not there's any hardship or practical difficulty in complying with the code?
Yes.
Okay, tell us what you have in support of the uniqueness of this particular property for purposes of the variance that you see.
Property is a 6-unit property with 2 3-bedroom units, and the remaining 4 units are 2 bedrooms, so 2 3-bedroom and 4 2-bedroom units. Property is a brick property in structure with basement units with egresses to the basement. Property is facing, or back of it is facing some empty area that's wooded area. There is a predominantly residential community with single-family residents. 1 block over exists a sprawling apartment complex. So apartments are in the area already and standard to the area. There also is a church on the block as well. Rehabilitation is going on in the area. So a lot of properties which were once vacant have since been purchased by investors. There still is a certain level of crime, which obviously leads to needing to be addressed and dealt with. And that's really all I have to the uniqueness of the property.
Mr. Trey, are you currently managing the property as a multifamily unit dwelling, and then you're just looking to change the use?
That is correct.
You're not intending to alter the structure at all?
No, sir.
Can you tell the board what kind of residential care facility you're going to operate? Like who will be living there?
So we are looking to do a level 5 of treatment. So this is essentially detox. So individuals will come into treatment, stay there for about a 2-week period of process, and then move on to the next stage, which is a PHP. So there won't be any sort of individuals coming and going outside of staff in the property. So they'll be housed in the property for a 2-week period and then move to partial hospitalization. And they'll stay in partial hospitalization for about 60 days and then move to intensive outpatient treatment, which they'll remain in for about another 2 to 3 months. Hopefully at that time, they're ready to move on and get back into society. If not, there's a long-term treatment program they'll be able to go into.
Okay. Are you utilizing any local or other governmental grants to provide these services?
No, we're actually privately funding it through KMH Medical Center, who will be the partner.
Who was that?
KMH Medical Center, they're located on 5401 Bel Air Road. It's an existing alcohol and drug treatment program that also offers free housing.
I noticed in the write-up that in 1994, they were proposed for 8 dwelling units.
Can you turn on your microphone, Mr. Clark?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
They got disapproved for it to go from 6 dwelling units to 8, and it was disapproved. You know why?
No, I didn't own the property at that time, but I can imagine that spacing wouldn't be adequate to make it an 8-unit. So they could probably be too small for 8 units.
And in the terminology used here about the count, when you went to 19, I think the 5 represents 5 rooms. Am I to believe that that's 5 one-bedroom? There's 1 bed in each room?
Yeah, what's the status of the basement? I guess those 5 were relegated to the basement, it looks like?
Right.
So the basement presently consists of a mechanical room and 2 apartments are presently down there now. But there is open, unused space presently in the basement. So plans would be to open up the property, obviously, change the layout on the interior of the property to properly provide enough room. And obviously, it's according to the fire codes to determine the maximum amount of occupancy which can be in each space, per the sprinkler system as well as pole stations and fire code.
Mr. Trey, are you currently operating any similar facilities in the city?
No,
Okay. Do you have any experience operating a facility like
I
this?
do apologize.
No, you're fine.
I do not, so KMH Medical Center does.
Okay.
That's who's going to be the occupying the space and running the facility.
Okay.
I would operate in a landlord status.
This facility is for men and women.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Trey, so the plans that have been submitted with the application here, these are plans of what will occur in this space, or is this actually what it currently is today?
It's proposed for what will in the future.
I heard what you said, Mr. Try, about the, I guess, historical use of this property. I guess, to put it squarely, the question of how is this unique for purposes of your lot area variance that you're seeking to obtain?
Can you clarify a little bit?
Probably not. But the code requires us, in order to grant a variance, that the property be unique in some way, that, for which you should get some relief from the code requirement that, and here the variance requested is a lot area variance, because for what you're seeking to do, normally would require 13,683 square feet. You're proposing 6,383 square feet, which is a 53.6% variance. Under the analysis, we're required to, one, establish that the property, based on its, condition, makeup, topography, anything about it is unique, and that uniqueness should give rise to relief from the code requirement that you have 13,683 square feet. Basically, we're working with half that.
So I guess I would speak to the existing variance that exists on the building that already was grandfathered in for use as a 6-unit, and that a similar variance could be granted to a residential treatment facility. I would ask that it would fall under the same grandfathered variance.
Well, that's the thing about grandfathering. It's a word we often use, and people often use, but when the codes change, one, I don't know whether or not this 6 or 8 dwellings is being operated under a prior variance, but in any event, the code changed in 2017, so Ms. Witt, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I mean, it is a weird one, because under,
That makes it unique.
in table 9-401, which talks about the bulk and yard regulations for residential districts, it gives minimum lot area standards for each use that's allowed in this zoning district. But then in residential care facility, in the little box where normally it would say, need this number of square feet per dwelling unit or whatever, it says lot area to be comparable to that for a like-size multifamily dwelling. But in this case, we don't have a like-size multifamily dwelling. We have an existing multifamily dwelling that is non-conforming with respect to the density that already exists. And so it's a weird situation that the code has put us in. It's hard to interpret this lot area to be comparable to that for a like-size multifamily dwelling, because we have a multifamily dwelling here. And so, I mean, I would venture to guess that there are not a lot of these type of properties in this area, which could be a unique thing. What does what does the neighborhood look like? Like, is this mostly row houses surrounding here, or what other kinds of properties are nearby?
So there's an apartment complex which is directly behind, which it may be 15, 20 different buildings. There's also some single-family homes and several row homes in the area. Like I said, there have been signs of rehab going on in the area, but there are still some abandoned properties in the area. And checking on the need of the residential treatment facility in the area, it definitely is a need for it. And if you look at the amount of detoxes that are in the city, there's a shortage on the amount of detoxes that are in the city, which is why KMH Medical wanted to provide, because the need is so great.
I understand that. You're now speaking about the use and the basis for that. But because we technically have to have there's a variance request, there's a formula for identifying whether or not the property is right for a variance or that we can grant one, and we have to make a few findings. Now, if we're able to dispense with certain of those, I don't know. We've dealt with things based on their as-built conditions and things of that nature. But just looking to add to the record some factual basis for finding uniqueness for this particular property. So we could go on to the next element, which is undue hardship or practical difficulty in complying with the code. You're not going to add space to add another 6,000 square feet of lot area. Again, I'll be kind of
I don't know if anyone can explain it better than the way that I've explained it.
Well, that's problematic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if I'm hearing what you said correctly, that for the residential treatment facility, it should have the likeness of a multi-unit apartment building. And if we have an existing multi-unit apartment building,
Clearly,
I think that
that's
kind
the
of.
case, right? It's
Yeah.
like this one. This is one of those things.
Correct.
The code doesn't necessarily say it that plainly, which is also a problem with the code, right? Well, I just wanted to figure out how to walk through this variance.
Yeah, we're in an unusual situation here, I think, because the bulk and yard regulations are not applying to this situation in a way that they normally would. I think normally I also have I think, not to poke at the code because it's not like we can do anything to change it, but I don't really understand what a like-sized multifamily dwelling would be if this structure did not exist, because, I mean, what does that even mean? There could be all sorts of different numbers of units within a certain structure. I'm finding it hard to understand. I don't know if anyone else can. I always look to Mr. French when I'm having a hard time, but maybe he can't. Maybe he can't help us at this point. I don't know if anyone else has the code in front of them.
It wouldn't matter.
Okay.
Absolutely would not matter.
I don't know.
Well, since we can't be left for you with, we don't know, either we have to, and this is unfair to you, I get it, get some more clarity on how we apply this so that we can run through the elements, if in fact you're required to have a variance. I wish you didn't have to have one. We could go on to the conditional use and spend our time on that. Which probably we ought to do. I have a couple more questions on the conditional use.
Sure.
You mentioned that the residents will be staying there for periods of 2 weeks at a time.
Correct.
So it's, what access do the residents have to the outside area? Is it locked?
Correct. So they'll have no access
No access?
in that 2-week period of time.
Okay, and do you have security on site?
Yes.
And what does that security entail?
Well, there's 24-hour security on site, as well as there'll be 24-hour actual, what's the name for them? House managers, I'm sorry, that also will be there on site. And the nurse practitioner has to be staffed as well as on site as well for things like comfort meds and things of that nature, because people will be detoxing.
Okay. Is there, to your knowledge, is there any outdoor time that the residents are entitled to?
No,
So they'll be inside for 2
Correct.
weeks without
Correct.
seeing,
So it's blackout.
yeah,
correct.
Yes. 2-week blackout.
okay. Okay. Because the other question was, is there any security around the perimeter? Well, I know that there's a,
There's fencing
Fencing.
around the perimeter now, which will be replaced with something a little bit more secure.
like what?
Well, actually, a higher fence, so a wrought iron higher fence that will exist. What we have to understand is that this is a period of time where individuals are detoxing. So any sort of contact that they possibly could have with someone on the outside could lead to interruption of the detox period of
Sure,
time.
certainly.
As well as for the safety of them and possibly getting any sort of contraband onto the campus,
Right.
it needs to be extremely secure and not allow for any contacts or visits or anything of that nature. Once they make it to the second stage of the program, which is partial hospitalization treatment, again, they're going to be in a stage where they're not in contact. They'll be able to go outside. They'll be able to, move around the campus and things of that nature, go to any sort of doctor's appointments and things with staffing, but limited interaction with family and things of that nature to ensure that there's no contraband brought on site. And then the next stage, which is intensive outpatient treatment, they can come and go as they please.
At this facility?
No.
Okay,
I'm just,
different
this facility
locations.
is extremely locked down. and
Right,
it
I
is-
was.
Correct. But I'm just speaking to the different stages that individuals will go through, the need for the level of security and the need for no sort of exchange or interaction with the general public.
And that's why I was going to, what are the conditions and physical conditions outside and
Correct.
security? If this is a blackout situation, you won't be utilizing those multiple levels of treatment
No.
at this site.
No.
Just the initial,
So the need for parking is kind of met because only the staff is going to be parking, and there is street parking around the area.
At any given time, how many staff do you think will be on site max?
4. Minimum is 4, but max maybe 6 to 8.
and the rooms that the residents in, they will remain locked.
Correct.
Okay.
With access to, each floor will have a house manager that's on site, which will patrol and move through. And the floors are delegated to male and female with communal style bathrooms that we proposed.
Okay. Cameras throughout the facility?
Correct.
Internally, I imagine?
Cameras throughout the facility with lounge areas on each floor and a cafeteria style kitchen.
Okay. Are you aware of any information or circumstance for this proposed use that would suggest to you that, I know the answer to this, but I need you to say it on the record, that there's, this use would provide some detriment or concern for safety for the community?
No, sir.
Are we able to parse a resolution of the conditional use and for the issue of
I have a suggestion
variance?
on the variance. What if the board considered it to be a continuation of non-conforming density, since
I'm
the
fine, I'm happy to do
density
that.
regulation is the same for multifamily? Like if something interrupted this use and he needed to come back for the multifamily non-conforming density, we would consider it not a variance. We would consider it a continuation of the existing density, and the density regulation for multifamily dwelling and this use is the same. It's identical. So do you think that I think that it's at least a possibility that the board can consider this a non-conforming density, not apply the variance standard because of essentially the density is continuing.
I agree with that
I do as well.
analysis.
Great.
And I think
I
we
just came up with
established
this.
For the record.
That's going to be for the reasons stated on the record. Any other questions for the applicant at this point?
None for me.
No? All right, Mr. Try, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll try to figure this out.
Thank you.
One, as to the conditional use, I mean, yes, that's to the conditional use. We understand what the facility is going to do and how it's going to be operated. It sounds like it's going to be very secure. So I don't believe that the establishment of these conditional use here, under the circumstances that were described, would be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. This use is not precluded by any other law. I don't believe the authorization for the use would be contrary to the public interest. I think it would be in support of the public interest. There's a certain population that needs this kind of treatment and care. And I believe the authorization for the use requested would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of this code. And I don't think the use would have any adverse effects above and beyond those that are inherently associated with this type of use at any other location within the zone. So I mean, yes, that's the conditional use.
I'm also, yes, I took a look at the application, hearing the applicant's testimony. I'm intimately familiar with Penn-Lucy and regarding those neighborhoods and where this is located. And so I do not believe that a detox facility, residential care facility here at this location will have any negative consequences that are above and beyond what a similar facility would have anywhere else in the R5 district. So I'm a yes.
Okay.
Without using the word grandfather. Yeah. I'm a yes. Okay.
I equally have no concerns about the facility now. Also agree with everything that you have said about that, so I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
And to deal with the quasi-hybrid, whatever you want to call it, variance / non-conforming density use, I believe we can confirm the non-conforming density given the prior use of this property. There are no proposed changes to the structure at all. So I'm a yes as to a confirmation of the non-conforming density for this property. I think that gets them where it needs to go.
I'm a yes.
All right. Is that good? Can we do that? Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Try. Thank you for your
Yes.
patience. Good luck to you.
Sometimes we just have to puzzle it out in real time in front of everybody.
Yeah. Okay, calling case number 2023-182, 1642 Beeson Street, Philip Jones.
There are two cases that go together.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Also going to call for the record, case 2023-183, 1644 Beeson Street, also Mr. Jones. And is one of you Mr. Jones?
That's me.
Okay.
This is Evan Roberts and Jeff.
Awesome, welcome. So this is a request as to case number 182 at 1642 Beeson Street to use first floor of the premises as an office requiring conditional use approval. And as to case number 183 at 1644 Beeson Street to use the first floor as a retail goods establishment and second floor as an office with accessory storage requiring conditional use approval as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think they're both meant to be a neighborhood commercial establishment, so.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you want it.
Right. Let's get everybody sworn.
You raise your right hand. You swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
I do.
I've got your name. Can I get your name, sir?
Yes, Evan Roberts, EVAN ROBERTS.
It's Jeffrey Miller. With a G? Yep, J. Jeffrey. R-E-Y.
Thank you. Hear from staff and planning.
All right, so the requests are both under the neighborhood commercial section of the code, which is a category where in a residential zoning district, there are certain kinds of commercial uses that are allowable by conditional use. One of them is office, one of them is retail goods, there's restaurant, and a couple other ones that property owners can apply for from the board if there's some kind of history of their property being used for a non-residential purpose. So as we all know, there's lots of history of, especially like corner row houses in certain neighborhoods being used historically for some kind of office use or restaurant or whatever. So that's the section that this code, or that these two appeals are under. The first, 2023-182, is to request a use as an office under this neighborhood commercial section. The second one is for retail goods and office. They both have histories of being used for non-residential purposes. And this is going to be another case where there is a parking variance requested for both, or required for both, because of the large size of these properties. Normally, for neighborhood commercial, they're exempt from parking requirements because the idea is that neighbors would want to walk to an amenity in their community, and so there isn't a parking requirement. However, if you're over 2,500 square feet, then there is a parking requirement of 1 space per 800 square feet. So both of these properties are large. They are about 3,700 square feet, and so the requirement would be 5 parking spaces to cover that square footage for each property. So again, we have a conditional use for each property. We also have a parking variance for each property of 5 spaces required and 0 proposed as far as I know. That's it from me.
Okay.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed these applications with regard to appeal number 2023-182 for 1642 Beeson Street. The department notes that this property was last authorized for use for motor vehicle service and repair minor in a fully enclosed structure, which is a prohibited use in the district, and the proposed use would extinguish non-conforming use of the property. The property is covered entirely by the existing building, and therefore there is no option to provide off-street parking on the lot the way it's currently constructed. The records available to planning staff indicate that this existing structure was built in 1970 and is eligible for an exemption from the parking requirement. The department is recommending approval of the application. With regard to Appeal 2023-183 for 1644 Beeson Street, the department notes that this property has a record of use as a neighborhood commercial establishment, and the proposed use is another version or another type of neighborhood commercial establishment. The property is eligible, as is the other property, for neighborhood commercial establishment use. Again, the property is covered by the existing building, and therefore there is no option to provide off-street parking on site. The department is recommending approval of this application also. Thank you.
Mr. French, you mentioned that perhaps given when the property was built, there's an exemption for parking?
Yeah, there's a zoning code provision that says any property that's over 50 years old can be granted an exemption from off-street parking requirements.
But that exemption would be granted by the Director of Planning.
Right, which would have to be applied for to the Director of Planning. But the board certainly should consider the fact that the property is considered eligible for that exemption by the Planning Department.
Well, we wouldn't have to go through the variance standards if we could get the exemption, and we could just move forward with conditional use. Do you, let me just ask, do you intend to apply for that exemption? Or are you relying on?
Yeah, I think
board?
we would apply for that for sure.
Okay. Okay. We can condition on the application of the exemption. Get the variance standard. Okay. Tell us about your proposed uses.
Yeah. Evan Roberts. So the corner of 1644 will be the retail establishment. That's going to be a cafe. Our office, we own a commercial construction company, Clipper Construction. We'll have several offices above the cafe, with the adjoining building, 1642, having some section of accessory storage that we use just for staging products for our different jobs throughout Baltimore. And then we'll have some co-working space as well, so the office space there. That's designed to be, both that and the cafe are designed to be amenities to the community. I formerly lived in Locust Point, so it was something I always noted was missing from the neighborhood was how can I not get a decent cup of coffee somewhere in the area, in the co-working space. We've got a lot of houses under 1,000 square feet. These people are, everyone's working remote these days, right? So just having an alternative to that was something we thought would be a good amenity.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to address anything regarding the parking? I know that it sounded like that was a concern, but just to have it on the record.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a very large paid parking lot that I believe is owned by Tide Point directly behind this. I think it's well over 500 spaces and it sits completely empty. And as we all know, Under Armour is actually going to be moving, so I don't see that lot in any time in the near future being full. So something we've told people, if you're driving to work, which would be weird, if you're in Locust Point, driving to an office in Locust Point, you have that as an option for parking as well.
Okay.
This might be a question for Mr. French. Do the parking variances that the planning department would approve versus what we would approve, do they work in tandem or does one supersede the other?
I think that's a permit approval question. I believe the
Okay.
planning department has to sign off on a permit in this situation.
Okay.
And therefore, the department would receive a request for the variance addressed to the director would approve it, and the department would sign off on the permit application. That's basically how it happens. Meanwhile, there's also a zoning sign-off by zoning administration on the same permit application. And that decision by zoning administration would be based upon what the board decides.
Okay. So regardless of if they go pursue the planning department pathway, we still need to make a decision here today on our opinion on the
Well,
parking variance.
You are certainly welcome to make a decision that there is no need, for parking on this site, and you can approve a variance. And then they won't have to apply to the director. They can
Okay,
get-
that
they
was
get it
that was
directly from
my
you.
follow-up. Thank you.
Okay.
Could you explain a little bit about how you foresee this ground floor being utilized? I look at the floor plans and I'm seeing that there is a proposed purpose of the cafe on the corner, but then there is connection to the adjacent lots as well.
In the interior to that?
Yeah, I think that's actually been removed through conversation with the permitting department. That opening exists currently, but they would like to see that closed off. So we were maintaining it for convenience of access to the trash room, but at this point, it needs to be closed off by the fire marshal's request.
Okay, so 1642 and 1644 will remain two individual lots with no connection to them.
Yeah, we're actually closing up an existing connection.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Witt, do you think we should walk through the variance issues on here to just go ahead and?
Well, again, I think this was forwarded to us as only a conditional use without the variance request. I'm just was looking to see how the code defines this historic property exemption. It doesn't define it as a variance, it defines it as like an exemption that the planning department can grant. I don't know, the board has historically granted off-street parking variances based on as-built condition of structures. We don't require property owners to tear down portions of their building in order to provide parking.
What she said.
So,
We put that in the resolution?
I mean, Jim can.
Taking notes.
Okay. You don't plan on tearing down any structures that cover the entirety of the lot?
I do not.
Okay. It would be a hardship to do that, would it not?
It would.
Probably not in your budget?
Definitely not in our budget.
Okay.
That's very consistent with what the board has done in the past for parking. So.
Yeah. All right. Um, Any other questions for the applicants for these uses?
No.
All right. Okay. I'll take a stab at it. For the conditional uses, for 1642, to use the first floor of the premises as an office. I don't see any evidence in the record that this would be a detriment to any safety issues or otherwise be problematic for the community in any way. The use as an office is not, well, just do it for both of them. The uses, plural, that are being sought in both cases, don't appear to present any detriment to the public or cause any adverse concerns. The uses are not precluded by any law. The uses would not be contrary to the public interest, and the uses requested would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code, and the uses would otherwise not engender any adverse effects beyond those typically or inherently associated with these types of uses in the subject district. As to the parking, we've heard from planning that there is a process for obtaining an exemption with regard to the parking, but as Ms. Witt indicated, this board has historically granted off-street parking variances for properties where the entirety of the lot is covered by the structure. And this board doesn't, I don't believe the code requires that you tear down your structure just to comply with parking, what otherwise would be parking standards. So I'm a yes as to the conditional uses and as to the variances for off-street parking.
I can agree on being yes.
I'm a yes on both.
I'm also a yes.
And I too am a yes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Good luck to you. Okay, case number 2023-190, 704 North Gilmore Street. 704 North Gilmore LLC.
Yes.
Your name, sir?
Darian White. Is this on?
All right, this is a request to use the premises as a four-dwelling unit requiring lot area and off-street parking variances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's get the gentleman sworn, please.
Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I heard you say your first name. I didn't catch. Can you spell it?
Yes, Darian, Darien. Darian White.
I hear from staff and planning.
All right, so I think this was originally sent to us as lot area and off-street parking. The issue here is that the request is to use it as four dwelling units. It is currently, the last use permit that was issued was as a single-family dwelling, which the board knows that we are not permitted to convert a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling in the R8 zoning district, which is where it exists. This is allowed by legislative ordinance only, by the city council. And this is in, I believe, Councilman Bullock's district. And he does put in these kinds of legislative ordinances pretty regularly for people who have single-family dwellings that need to be converted to multifamily dwellings. But yeah, the board doesn't have the authority to grant this request. It needs to go to the councilman. And I think the planning department has also submitted a report to this effect as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, notes that this property is located in the Harlem Park 2 Urban Renewal Plan area. That urban renewal plan does not prevent the proposed use. The department noted that the property was last authorized for use as a multifamily dwelling containing 3 dwelling units by ordinance number 15-429, dated November 17th of 2015. That ordinance also approved several variances of the zoning code regulations then in effect. However, the conditional use approved by that ordinance was not followed by a use permit to that effect, as no certificate of occupancy was issued to the previous owner and the building remained vacant. Therefore, the conditional use approval granted in 2015 has lapsed according to Section 2-203J of the zoning code. And as your staff has indicated, the property still has the status of a single-family dwelling at the present time. The department recommends disapproval of the application because the zoning code does not authorize the board to approve conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling in the R8 zoning district where this property is located. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Sir, were you aware of this restriction?
I was. I didn't understand why that was the case, though.
And unfortunately, for the purposes of the board, why it is, is not really sort of before us. But we're just without power or authority, to grant your request because of where the property is in this particular district. There is a means to do it, which does require you going to your council person and having them follow through with that process.
Okay.
So it's not out of the realm.
Yeah, just for, not that anyone cares about the history, but the board used to be able to grant these kinds of approvals before Transform Baltimore went into effect. So the board would regularly hear residential conversions, and we still can for certain kinds of zoning districts like R9 and R10 and commercial zoning districts. But when the code was changed and completely rewritten, the city council people decided that they wanted that power to themselves. They didn't want to have the board do that anymore to grant conversions. Maybe the board was giving them out too frequently. I don't know what was happening at the time. I didn't work here at the time. But that's what they decided to do. They decided to make it by legislative ordinance, meaning that only the city council person, technically any city council person could introduce this ordinance, but it would make sense to go to the city council person for this district, who, like I said, does put these bills in. So it's certainly possible. It's just that you have to talk to him.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Again, based on our inability to grant the relief, I'm a no.
I'm also no.
I have to say no also.
Also no.
Also, no.
Okay. Case number 2023-194, 542 Benninghouse Road, David Diamond. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I'm the architect. This is the
Okay.
owner.
Okay, which one of you is Mr. Diamond?
I'm Mr. Diamond.
All right, Mr. Diamond, this is a request to use the accessory structure as a dwelling unit requiring minimum lot area and off-street parking variances. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's get the parties and witnesses sworn.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm on your family perjury that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. I have you as Mr. Diamond, right?
Correct.
And your name?
Solomon,
Can you spell it?
Solomon,
And
last name Ajay, Ajay.
J-A-Y-A.
I.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, so the request is to use an accessory structure as a dwelling unit requiring minimum lot area and off-street parking variances. There are a couple other ones as well. So I'll just go through them. Minimum lot area, 3,000 square feet is required for two dwelling units. 2,626 square feet exists, so it'd be a 374 square foot variance. Maximum lot coverage, 35% is allowed. 41% is proposed, so it'd be a 6% variance. Minimum rear yard setback, 25 feet is required, 0 feet is proposed, so it'd be a full variance of 25 feet. Because, all right, I'll give more information later. In a minimum interior side yard setback, 10 feet is required, 0 feet is proposed to be a full variance of 10 feet. So what exists now is a garage, or a partially built or partially demolished garage. They're proposing to convert that concrete masonry shell, essentially, into a single-family dwelling unit. There is opposition to the application from Councilman Conway, which is in the pocket of your binder. It didn't make it into the file that was sent to you, so I printed it out. And some construction was begun without permits as well, so there's some issues there. There also may be an access issue. from the street to the dwelling unit. There is a driveway that seems to access this back area of the house, but it's on an adjacent lot. It's not on the same lot. And I'll leave it there for right now.
Okay, Mr. French.
Planning Department has no comment on this application officially. However, we do note many of the same issues that have been brought to your attention by the staff. This property does not appear to provide proper access for the proposed dwelling unit. And there is no record in front of us that there is a right to use the adjoining property for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. First, this letter is recently dated. It's November 16th from Councilman Conway. Have you seen this letter?
No.
I do want to point out an error in the first paragraph of Councilman Conway's thing. He says 4,000 square feet required, and it is only 3,000 square feet required.
Yeah, I believe that's true.
So he says nearly half the amount of square footage minimum lot area, so that is incorrect.
Okay. Well, I would like you to speak to, in support of your project, also speak to certain of the things that have been raised in this letter of opposition. So you have a garage that you want to convert to a second dwelling. Mr. French, you mentioned a couple of things. You said there's also no authority that's been given for, could you say that again?
The department has no information that would indicate that there is an access easement or other such legal thing relating to the adjoining property.
Okay.
Because the property itself, as seen from an aerial photograph, does not currently have a driveway and a curb cut. And it appears that there may be a curb cut for the adjoining property. Whether that was lawfully permitted by the Department of Transportation, we do not know. That would be another question to explore.
Okay, thank you.
May I share this photo?
Well, not typically, because we can't see it. And when we come here, either photos have to be, maybe it's an issue you haven't anticipated, but we generally can't accept phone photos and things like that because they can't be made part of the
It
record.
is included with the application, but it clearly shows access via
Okay.
driveway.
So that should be in our packet?
Yes.
Yes, but it doesn't come down to the street, does it? It stops. It doesn't come down to the street. That's yard. And there's no curb cut. We have no record of that. You need to show that you have a record of a curb cut.
Sounds like there's some evidence you have of a curb cut? Lawfully imposed curb cut.
I can't speak to what was, to the history of what was there, but I've driven up to it.
Yeah, we have all those information. I think we attached that to the submission. I'm just.
Mr. French, you've seen the application with the photos that are incorporated?
Yes, we have a copy, and there's a set of 4 photographs titled Benninghouse ADU. None of those existing views clearly show that there is a legitimate curb cut leading out to Benninghouse. Existing view number 4 is probably the one that is closest to giving any type of visual information.
If the board wants to see what Mr. French just referred to, I have one copy printed that I can pass down.
Yeah, I have the photos.
There is an aerial photograph which was taken, I believe, in 2020 or possibly in 2022, which clearly shows the paving of the side yard of this property around the house and the paving of the entire rear yard, including the slab that the concrete walls are resting on. But it also clearly shows that there is no driveway leading down to Benninghouse Road from that side yard. And the department would want to know that there was a legitimate paving permit issued and a curb cut permit issued for this paved side yard to constitute a driveway. There is no evidence of that provided in this application.
Do you understand that question or those set of questions from planning?
Yes, I do. And in reference to the driveway, there is a driveway leading onto the property, right? Because this existing ADU we're requesting the permit approval for, there is a 542 and there's an open lot which is 540 next to it, and there's a driveway in between both properties, right? That leads to the existing structure behind the house.
Do you see that in the photos you provided?
I see that in Google Earth right now.
Is it possible that the curb cut is actually assigned to 540 Benninghouse versus the curb cut being assigned to the property in question? Does that make sense? Because it looks like the driveway straddles. If the blue line is the property line, I'm looking at the overhead picture, and the driveway extends into 540 Benninghouse. Is the curb cut on 540 versus 542, and is that the issue at hand?
I don't believe so. It looks like the property line is to the west, and you can see the driveway is between the property line and the existing house. And again, I'm on just Google Earth on my phone, and
Yeah.
it looks exactly like what I've seen there.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, here's the driveway. And then, I mean, clearly they got cars in there.
Well, we don't, and Mr. Friend, I think you clarified that we don't even know if that curb cut is a approved curb cut as well, right?
There's just no record.
Do you have any information regarding that curb cut?
Not from my awareness, no, I do not.
Was it there when you?
It was there when I bought the property. It's always been there.
Do you only own 542?
Correct.
Okay.
Something that, it's information that we probably need to know here, I think, right? I mean, we often have properties that have certain physical characteristics that have been created by people who use them, but weren't lawfully provided or granted. Ask Mr. French a question. I'm gonna ask, he's talking. So. Mr. French, what is the significance of the point you raised regarding the curb cuts and where they are and whether they're lawful?
Well, the first key thing is, of course, that in order for this proposed additional dwelling unit to be served, there needs to be an off-street parking space to serve it under the zoning code. That off-street parking space can only be provided on this property if there is a legitimate permitted driveway and curb cut addressed at 542 Benninghouse. Alternatively, it could be provided using what may be a curb cut at 540 Benninghouse if the owner of 540 Benninghouse grants an easement for that purpose across his property. But there is no record available to the department that any such thing is being done. And there is no permit for a driveway on 542 issued since 2022, when that aerial photograph was taken. And therefore, if a curb cut was to be created at 542, it has to have Department of Transportation approval, authorization. We have no record that such a thing was done. That's all.
Thank you. Okay. What do you say to that?
I'm not really sure. Again, I've seen the curb cut is there. It was there the first time I saw the property. It was
What's
there
been
when
there
he
since about it?
bought the property. So we would need to go back and find who put that curb cut in, I guess. Is that correct?
Or get it permitted,
I'm sorry?
or you might have to go and talk to the agency and see how you can get that permitted, or get that rectified.
There was also, I think I may have mentioned this, work without a permit being done on the structure itself. Like, we haven't actually looked at the structure and what is proposed to be built here. Putting the curb cut and the driveway aside, lot area, lot coverage, setbacks, and apparently parking space, which was not in my notes, would all need to be, the board would need to find a uniqueness that would require all these variances in order to approve this. So if the board wants more information, that's one thing, but seems like there's a lot of other things going on here as well.
How long have you owned the property?
A little over a year now.
Have you done work on the property?
On the existing structure, which is 542 itself, yes, I re-upped 542 after I bought it. So the structure we're talking about now, which is behind 542, we're proposing to use as the ADU. So we've not done any as of yet. Yes, we've just stabilized the masonry so it doesn't fall off completely. And while we're putting the appeal in for it to be used for the ADU.
I have a note here. It says, work without permit, cement block work on existing rear accessory structure without permit. Did you get a violation notice for that?
Correct, we did.
Okay.
Did you pay somebody to do that work?
Yes, I did.
Did you not know you needed a permit for that?
Yes, the initial plan was to have that started while we're working on the actual 542 structure. But based on our timeline, we're gonna pull in the permits while we're working on that, but we didn't meet our timelines. So it was just on that impression. I was just gonna start that with the groundwork and put in the permits as we're working along. But while we're in the process, we got it with the stop work order.
Are you prepared to walk through the, wait a minute, let me, I'd see your statement of justification here. To walk through the elements for variances for each of these variances, uniqueness, hardship, all that?
Sure, that I can respond to.
I guess I'm also, in light of this question that's hanging over this about the curb cut and what property it's on and whether it was legit.
That's very much a surprise to me as well. I was not expecting that.
Okay, do you want an opportunity to sort of come up with an answer to that or resolve that issue?
I can only speak to what's existing. The first time I saw the property, that's the way it was.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that requires somebody to do some background work and figure out, or as you said, get it permitted, legitimately permitted. But that's up to you. What we won't do is grant something or grant some approval that would incorporate some other work or aspect of it that's not properly done or properly permitted or authorized. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if we go and try to work through these variance requests, to grant what it is you're seeking, as Mr. French indicated, we would have to have some actual legitimate legal curb cuts on the right property. Just because we see it, that it's there, doesn't mean that it's legitimate. We don't have any records for that to legitimize it. So.
So the first, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
The first step then would be getting a permit for the existing curb cut. Is that?
Well, because we don't have any records that suggest that it's properly, that was properly permitted, or, again, what we do have a record of now is a history of work being done on the property in violation of some code requirements. Am I saying this right, Mr. French? In order for the relief that you actually are seeking yourself, I'm not going to quote it because I can't, but all the things that Mr. French mentioned are sort of necessary for the relief that you're seeking.
Well, what I was referring to specifically was the issue of whether a parking variance would be required or not.
Okay.
I was not addressing the other
Okay,
variance questions.
got it. All right, well, maybe we can deal with the others.
Because if we grant the parking variance,
Yeah.
there's no need for a curb cut. There's no need, correct? Because they won't have to access the property to park there.
That sounds correct, and I didn't know to apply for the parking variance because there is a parking pad. Again, that was just existing, and I assumed an existing use was able to remain. But all the other variance requests, I can respond to.
Okay, we can go forward then on the variance request, then you can tell us about the uniqueness of the property and how that uniqueness applies or supports your request for a variance in each of these areas, each of these variances.
Do you want me to start that? So as I put in the application, within the area driving around it and looking on Google Earth, there are no other properties nearby that have a garage of that size, a detached garage of that size, and he has no use for a garage. The adjacent lot is abandoned, and I believe that Solomon has thought about buying that property as well. So I don't think it would be a detriment to anyone in the community. I think it would, right now, it's kind of an eyesore. I think it would only improve it, and it would be a great use. And I know that I do a lot of work in Baltimore County as well, and ADUs are becoming very popular. And I think they're good for the market.
So the uniqueness is that the only lot in the vicinity, whatever that vicinity is, how large you're making that, with a large detached structure of this size in the backyard. Nobody else has this kind of structure in their yard.
Correct.
And the adjacent rear and side lots are vacant the other properties have vacant rear and side lots?
I'm sure other properties do, yes.
I'm just reading your statement for uniqueness, so I just want to know what it's based on. Use in its current state, the owner has no use for living space.
I mean, I'm kind of questioning, the existing structure that was there, was that ever approved for in the past? Question just as the curb cut has. I'm not sure if there's been any documentation, since it doesn't look like there's anything adjacent structures that have a similar accessory structure. How and when was this one originally constructed? And is it even allowed to be there in the first place? But that's beyond the question here, I guess.
We can look that up. I think that we found the original variance for the structure, and it was like from the 40s or something. But I will double check that.
Ms. Wett, I just want to note that like the application also says required 4,000 feet, but your
Okay.
notes say 3,000.
Yeah, I guess that's.
Can you clarify? I thought Councilman Conway's letter might be incorrect, but if their application also says 4,000, now I want to just double check and make sure that your
Yeah.
notes on the 3,000 are what we're basing our decision on.
Looking in the code right now. Okay. What zoning district are we in here? R6. R6. So I think it might be a conflict between, we don't really have a category for this kind of ADU thing. We have dwelling detached, dwelling semi-detached, dwelling row house, dwelling multifamily. I think what our staff person was using was dwelling multifamily, because there would be two separate structures on the site. But I believe the existing, now I don't know, is the existing structure, like main dwelling, is that detached or semi-detached? Does anyone know from looking at the?
It looks detached.
Detached, okay. Okay. So I think that's maybe where the confusion was. It says dwelling detached, 3,000 square feet is the minimum lot area. I think either way, it's 3,000 square feet, whether we use multifamily with the two dwelling units or dwelling detached is 3. I think 3,000 is correct. But it is another situation where the table doesn't quite exactly cover what we're trying to do, because what we're trying to do is not really multifamily. It's two detached dwelling units, which the code doesn't really, I mean, God bless Baltimore County, but we're not there yet here.
Yeah, so I did speak with both zoning and permit regularly trying to do this, because I knew we were trying to do something different. And I used their advice, and they guided me towards my interpretation of what was allowed.
I think it's 3,000.
I'm sorry?
I think it's 3,000, but I'm happy to have a discussion with people who think it's 4, but the way I read the table, it's 3,000.
Is 542 currently occupied
Correct.
as a single-family residence? Okay.
So for the dwelling that you're intending to build, would that become the primary structure or no? That's the accessory structure.
That's accessory structure.
Clear the primary structure is occupied. So the primary structure is occupied.
Correct.
currently. Access issue from Benning House Road to the proposed accessory dwelling unit. CMU is constructed without proper permit approvals and inspections. So your proposal for this present concrete, this present structure that I guess you're going to tear down and rebuild? No, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? It's all made of cinder blocks. I'm paying heed to this letter from the council person.
It's existing CMU. It looks like that there was a garage door that looks like it was hit by a vehicle possibly, and it was knocked wider. And I think that's the work that he tried to do, just to stabilize it. And I can't speak to that, but it is an existing CMU block, and the intent was to restore the masonry openings and add a new opening for daylight for a window. And it was, it currently is open to the atmosphere. There's no roof at all.
Did you undertake any work to extend the driveway?
No, we did not.
So just so I understand the current conditions, technically I could enter the property from Benning House Road and then park next to the ADU. But the concern is we don't have any record of that curb cut being authorized. And so we would need to get that on file. Was this also the one where we also are not sure if the driveway itself is permitted? That's what, we're unclear on both the curb cut and the driveway permit.
Yeah, I'm frankly looking at the letter from the councilman. He suggests that I guess the existing driveway is not permitted because somehow it was extended. So.
Okay. But you did not do any work. You purchased the property in that way.
I mean, I continue that concern. I'm, as I'm drawing a story, if the curb cut wasn't permitted, the driveway wasn't permitted, was the garage ever permitted? Which is, I can't make an assumption here, but I'm questioning if that accessory structure ever was.
It sounds like it
So
was.
if you look in it should be in the file, the old zoning cards, it does say erect 2-car concrete block garage. It was approved as of April 3rd, 1945. And permit was issued, April 20th of 1945. So the existing structure, again, which does not have a roof, you can't really call it an ADU at this point. That was permitted in the 40s.
How reasonable would it be for us to assume that a 2-car garage was permitted without a curb cut?
I think the question also becomes when curb cuts and driveways had to become permitted.
Yes.
Because they may not have had to be permitted when the garage was permitted.
Yeah. There might not be none of any of that exists if this is a parking garage built in 1942, and we have zoning cards that we can't find. that we knew once existed. So we know how this city is with records.
We do.
Have you had any meetings with Councilman Conway about this property?
No, I'm kind of blindsided by the letter because I did not receive that.
Mhm.
I emailed him directly because I consider him a friend
Mhm.
and let him know that this hearing was taking place.
Mhm.
And I'm very shocked by that letter.
Mhm. And then have you, in terms of Councilman Conway referencing community opposition, have you experienced any community concerns?
None at all.
He took pictures and we posted those and we sent them to the board.
The community association, is that, or?
I'm not
You mean
sure
of
about
the-
community
of the sign,
association. Of
the notice sign?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
sign is up.
If anyone
Yeah.
had any opposition
There's no
to it.
opposition.
Okay.
Yeah, done.
So it sounds like there's like technical things that we have to figure out about the driveway and the curb cut
Yeah.
before we could approve. And then the community or council person concern, do you have any renderings of the proposed property?
No.
Okay.
We have elevations
Yeah.
in the permit drawings.
As a new board member, I don't know how much advisement I'm allowed to give, but I would say one of the things that would make me feel more comfortable about weighing this in is if you were able to schedule a meeting with Councilman Conway, provide renderings so that he and the community understand what this will look like visually. I think we'll probably, then that concern is rooted in something right now. Like right now, it seems that the concern is rooted in the construction being unpermitted, and the concern about what that might say about the stability of the property owner. So you have to go back and say, we're gonna be good stewards, we're gonna rectify the curb cut and the driveway permit issue and demonstrate that it either is permitted or file the appropriate permits so that the existing conditions are approved. But that would be my recommendation, is to get some renderings to the council
That's
person.
pretty close to what we normally do in a situation like
Okay.
this. Yeah.
And what we do is give you an opportunity to have a postponement so that we don't have to rule on it with the information that's in front of us, which could be negative. So if those things are cleaned up and those other communications, with the councilman's office, the community organizations regarding what it is you're seeking to do here. I recognize it's residential property. It's not like a business that everybody's gonna be coming to. But they're pointing out certain things that are, somewhat problematic and raise some concern about, and give the board some insight as to whether or not it should be inquiring more about what you're actually gonna be putting here, or what you're seeking to put here. Again, it's up to you. You can take a postponement or not.
I was like, do you want me to add some context?
I'm sorry, I don't know who you are.
As the planner, hi.
Oh, you got a badge, okay.
Okay, just to help answer some questions.
You'd have to be sworn in, Marie.
We love help.
Yeah.
We love information.
You swear or affirm on the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you state and spell your name?
Marie, Marie, Anderson with the SON. Hi. Hi, folks. I was just sitting in the back and I thought it might be helpful to answer some questions. So one, the community was contacted. I do send out notification weekly.
Marie, can you tell them what your role is at the planning
I'm the
department?
community planner for the Northern District. So Mid-Govens is part of my 52 beautiful, illustrious neighborhoods. And so through conversations with the community association, it was apparent that they don't own the driveway and they also started work without permit. And so therefore we're unclear about the development process. And so the community took some concern with that. And so that's ultimately what led to the letter that you see from the councilman's office.
Question.
Any additional questions?
You indicated that it's pretty clear that they don't own the driveway?
Yeah, so the driveway is not within their property
Property
bounds, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's, that, yeah, so it is the other properties.
Yeah.
Curb cut.
So even if the parking variance is granted hypothetically, I'm not sure if there would be a lot of enforcement saying like, don't utilize this driveway to access this site. And there's no clear relationship between them and the property owner next door. Even if it is like, hey, we'll purchase this property. I do pass by this property daily because my child attends Govins Elementary. And so there is construction material on the site adjacent, and there has been ongoing work. They did stop the work on the ADU after the stop work order was issued.
Thank you.
That is good information.
May I show, I'm still confused by, so the property line is right here, it's
You
pretty
know,
much aligned.
How
with
about
the-
this?
Speak with planning department.
Talk to them offline.
Okay, I disagree with what she said.
That's great. Disagree in her office or somewhere.
Okay.
But I would recommend you take a postponement, because if we rule on this with all these questions in the air and history, it's probably not going to be helpful for you. So you got to give you an opportunity to sort of fix it, give some more concrete information about your ability to actually build on the site and do all the things you want to do, and let Ms. Witt know when you're in a position to come back, when you think you're ready. Only because if we rule, your ruling's going to stand, and you won't be able to file another.
I certainly appreciate that advice, and I advise you to accept that.
I do.
As long as we're giving advice, I have a little piece of advice too, which is that I think, take a careful look at the variances that are needed here, because I think it is going to require more than this garage exists, because there are a lot of garages that exist in the city. And I don't think the board is prepared to put an ADU on top of every garage that exists. To the extent that that is even possible under the current code. So think about the uniqueness and practical difficulty involved here in this proposed use. And yeah, we'll reschedule you when you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love this.
Okay, case number 2023-196, 1935 West North Avenue. Oscar Orlando Parado. Are you Mr. Parado?
Hi, good
Hi.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to use the premises as 3 dwelling units,
Yes.
requiring confirmation of non-conforming density.
Yes.
Can we get the witnesses sworn, please?
You raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give, statements that you make to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And can I get your name?
Elmer
Last name?
and Alice. C-A-N-A-L-E-S.
N-A-L.
Yeah, I'm sorry. C-A-N-A-L-E-S. Sorry.
You'll hear from staff and planning.
All right, so this request is to continue basically to use the structure for a 3 dwelling unit use. There are a couple of variances that have been added to your notes, but really what the board has done historically is to say that variances are just for changes in use. So if you were going to add a dwelling unit, then you'd have to go through the variance framework. But if you're just asking to use the premises as the last legal use, then we look at that under confirmation of non-conforming density, which would not require a variance. So that's what the board has done historically. And we do have the last legal use on this property was for 3 dwelling units all the way back in 1941 and was approved again in 1961.
Thank you.
Planning Department reviewed this application. As your staff has indicated, noted that the last authorized use of the property was 3 dwelling units. The property is currently vacant. The structure is a non-conforming structure under the current code, as the lot area is only 1,190 square feet versus a requirement of 1,375 square feet required under the current code. Similarly, there is an issue about off-street parking that would need to be resolved as a variance if this was not to be a continuing non-conforming structure determination. And finally, because this is going to be revived as a multifamily dwelling, the department would like to see that the applicant complies with the sanitation code. Therefore, the department has no objection to the application. Should the board determine that the application is approvable, the department recommends that approval of this application be subject to the condition that use of the property complies with terms and conditions of Baltimore City Code Article 23, which is the sanitation code. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Parado, are you agreeable to compliance with the sanitation code for this property use going forward?
Yeah.
Okay. So the property is intended to be used going forward as 3 dwelling units? You're not going to be adding any additional units, correct?
Yeah.
Right? You won't be doing 4 units or anything
No.
greater than
Yes,
3?
it's 3, yes.
Okay. That's all I need to know. Any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
I think we can confirm this, confirm the non-conforming density. We have the historical evidence that previously the board approved this premises for 3 dwelling units in 1941. Also, there was a license for 3 dwelling units in 1961. There's no evidence in the record of that information being untrue. The applicant has indicated that the intent only is to continue to use it as 3 dwelling units and not to alter that type of use. So I believe that it's approvable based on our practice of confirming non-conforming density as a way to deal with, the variance requests. So I'm a yes.
I'm also a yes for the reasons stated.
I agree, I'm a yes.
Also yes.
Also, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you.
Have a good day.
So we do have a case that's scheduled at 3 p.m., which is in 9 minutes, the 2022-405. But if we wanted to recall the first case, because I think that the applicant did arrive
All right.
for the first
Do
case.
that.
Hold on a second.
Case number 2023-022.
I'm so sorry, I came on from.
Hold on.
Washington, DC, that's why,
Hold on. Let me just recall it for the record. Sure. 2907 West Belvedere. Abdo Al-Qaeda Mozeb.
Yes.
Is that you? And this is a request to use the first floor of the premises as a retail goods establishment requiring conditional use approval, correct?
Yes.
All right. So let's get this gentleman sworn.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and statements that you make will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning for this case.
All right, this one is pretty straightforward. It's to use the first floor of the premises as a retail goods establishment. It requires conditional use approval under the neighborhood commercial establishment section of the code. The proposal is to use it as a convenience store. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a history of it being used as a place of, the last authorized use was as a place of worship. I think there have been other non-residential uses in the past as well, according to the zoning cards. And I think that's it from me.
Okay.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Park Heights Urban Renewal Plan area. That urban renewal plan does not prohibit or restrict the proposed use of the property. The department does note this is a rather unusual building in that it is designed and built as having a residential facade on Child Grove Avenue, but a more commercial facade along Belvedere Avenue. And the Belvedere Avenue, in fact, has 3 separate commercial addresses on it, 2905, 07, and 09 West Belvedere, in addition to the 5135 Child Grove Avenue residential address for the same building. It's a multi-story building, so the commercial uses are on the first level, and then the upper 2 levels are residential. The department finds that the property is therefore eligible for use as a neighborhood commercial establishment. There is no off-street parking required, as the floor area would be approximately 1,360 square feet of commercial space. 2,500 square feet is the threshold above which parking may be required. The department recommends that approval of the application be subject to the condition that all exterior alterations or signs at this location be constructed, installed, and maintained in accordance with plans and designs approved by the Department of Planning pursuant to the urban renewal plan. Thank you.
Are those conditions acceptable to you, Mr. Parado?
Yes, I don't know, I come from, from New York, 5 years, I pay rent. It's before 15 years ago, as the store is there. And I try open like convenience store in Delhi there because there's no Delhi around in the area, whole in the area.
Okay.
And
What are the hours you intend to operate? What are the hours you intend to operate?
oh, this is 8 in the morning to like 10 o'clock in the night.
8 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
Yeah. Yeah, because I do I got good relationship with the district. That's why I don't want no problem in the night. And also I work for a Yemen community. That's why I got a good relationship with everyone. Right now
Okay.
it's our home.
Is there anything operating there right now?
Nothing.
Okay.
It's 5 years. It's closed.
You intend to have lighting,
Of course.
front, side?
Yes.
Let me see.
I don't get nothing right now, but I gotta fix light and I fix signs and everything. I gotta get a permit. And I got proof because I lose a lot of money.
This building, is it only this convenience store or retail store that will operate there?
Delhi, yes. Because there's no Delhi whole block.
Okay,
They got grocery stores, but there's no Delhi.
I'm saying, is your business going to be the only business in this building?
Yes.
Is it going to take up the entire first floor?
Yeah. Because they get two addresses, I think, 3 addresses. The same. 3 addresses.
All right.
I want to go. I gotta open this only one place. And I do
1935
like
West North Avenue. Will you have security cameras outside?
Nah, yeah, right now?
No, what is your
Yes,
intent?
of course.
Oh, you can't say of course, because everybody doesn't do it. I want to know what you're
I
going to
do, of course. It's like 100%. Because, I know how it is right now. I have to do lights and cameras and, a lot of stuff.
Okay, you're going to have lighting, sufficient lighting around the property,
Yes.
security cameras
Yes.
inside, outside,
Inside and outside, yeah.
okay? Said you're intending to operate from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., is that 7 days a week?
Yeah, 7 day. They get scores there, and I open it from 6 to 10 o'clock. It's okay. Only like in school time, because they get some kids. They don't.
All right. Would he be permitted to sell tobacco products here? I don't see.
He would not, because this is a neighborhood commercial establishment, and tobacco sales are not allowed.
So you're not intending to sell tobacco products, correct?
For grocery, I don't know what I have to do. That's why I come in here. I want you to tell me what I have to sell or not, because I don't know exactly.
Okay.
What I try to do, I do like grocery and everything, like a deli, is like tobacco, convenience stores, milk. And
Well,
some stores may sell that, but you can't.
Yeah, so in the
That's what I wanna
residential
make
zoning
clear.
district, none of those kinds of uses that are within neighborhood commercial, which is the way that you're asking for retail, you cannot sell tobacco. So just FYI, we cannot give you permission to sell tobacco, and we will put a specific condition on your approval saying you're not allowed to sell tobacco. So just FYI on that. Also, no alcohol, but
alcohol, no, I don't do alcohol.
Okay. Okay. All right, any other questions for the applicant?
No.
I'm assuming the main entrance is going to be on the more commercial storefront side on Belvedere, and there won't be any access on the residential side.
Yeah, I gotta open in the West Belvedere. I gotta open in the middle. I open everything's and I put only one door in the middle.
Okay.
Because this is more safety for us, you know.
Okay. All right.
One last question, sorry. Are you proposing any facade renovations to the building, or is it pretty much gonna be as shown in the imagery?
The imagery. I don't know, I'm gonna do further.
Are you proposing any facade renovations outside of what its current existing condition is?
Yes,
Any changes to the building?
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, no. Okay. I can because.
Outside of security and lighting as we've.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Wait a minute here. So we're here on, wait a minute. I know I'm confused. I keep looking at the end of the docket, forgetting that we went back to the top. Request is for approval of the first floor of the premises as retail goods establishment requiring conditional use approval. There's, I believe, well, at least there's no information in the record that would suggest that this use at this location would be detrimental to the public or otherwise have a cause for concern. I would note that the applicant has indicated he intends to provide security cameras inside and out, sufficient lighting all around the property, as apparently is done with other establishments. The conditional use is not precluded by any other law. It's certainly not contrary to the public interest to have a retail goods establishment. The authorization for the use would be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code. And there's no information or evidence that the particular use here at this location would have any adverse impacts or effects above and beyond those inherently associated with retail goods establishment anywhere else within the district. So I'm a yes to the conditional use request.
Does he own the property?
So you'd be leasing the property?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm also yes.
So you're saying you have a current lease, you've been leasing the property?
Only this first floor.
Okay, and you've already been leasing it for 5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
I think I heard 2 yeses. Mr. Clark?
No, I haven't said yet, but I can be a yes. I just wanted to have my question about ownership answered.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
5 minutes.
Take 5 minutes. Yeah, sure. We're going to go off the record for,
A few minutes.
a few minutes. We'll be back when we're back. Okay. Let's see what this last one is here.
Want me to get them signed in now? Anybody who is coming here.
Okay. 2-story attached dwelling. Rear yard. Mistakenly poured.
Yeah, this is gonna be easy.
What was y'all doing? Did you get my email? I'm sorry.
Sorry, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt. I mentioned this before the hearing started. I'm gonna run down to keep my here.
Gotcha, no worries, no worries, take time.
I did. I see it tomorrow. Let them know that meeting with Faith is going to be your best option.
Yeah.
She's the only person that can get anything done there. But even still, I said she's the only person that gets things done there.
Right.
And of course, but we're trying to get like stuff. It is.
Yeah, I just gotta
looking for
Yeah.
the
No,
various
it's
wires.
me being, can you pull those wires out? Yeah. Yeah, I just throw them on the floor. Is that okay?
I know.
Yeah,
I
that
was,
was when I made the fall.
yeah. It's like diffusing the bomb.
Oh, boy, all right, what is this here? Two-story development.
Yeah, that'd be good. Somebody who set up the room.
Just remind them to turn on their mics. Turn them off when they don't. Got it. So do we have counsel in this one? Both sides? You guys can come on up and get your things situated. Oh, Mr. Lansing, okay, yeah. Hi again, sir. Good to see you again.
I won't be saying much.
That's all right. That's all right.
Everyone make sure if they are saying something that you turn your microphone on, which it's green when it's on. Thank you.
Oh, boy. Welcome.
I'm the same way, man.
Haven't carried one in the last decade, I think. I think I can print them up. We clearly won't be deliberating on this today. Because I know one of the things we do when we get counsel represented, typically it means we've got documents and other stuff to read, and maybe there's a Okay, calling.
Back on record? All right, we are back on the record at 3:14.
Calling case number 2022-405. My mic. Calling case number 2022-405, 6216 Wallace Avenue. The appellant is Christopher Mudd. And they're represented by,
I am the attorney, so I'm not the
Gotcha.
appellant. The applicant actually should be Friends Rabbinical Academy for Advanced Jewish Studies.
okay. Do we have
Is
the
the
right
property
case?
owner.
No, it's the right case. That's sometimes the appellant is the attorney. You know, sometimes it's the property owner. Either way.
Okay, this is a request to construct the two-story, well, here's where we'll know whether it's the right case or not. Construct a two-story detached dwelling requiring front yard, rear yard, and lot coverage variances.
That's correct.
Okay, God, we're in the neighborhood. Okay. And everybody here who might testify is here? Nobody in the audience is going to be testifying?
Not for myself, no.
Okay.
Neil Landsey, Vice Constable on scheme on behalf of one of the neighbors, Stephen Semenowitz. He's here, but we will be submitting on the agreement which we submitted on Friday to his with, like the restricted covenant agreement,
Okay.
dated the 16th of November.
If you could, you have a copy of that to submit to the board?
a physical copy?
You can do the one that, I have one more that's,
We could go make a copy. I'm just,
This is as close as the final. if there's any.
okay. I think that the board, because I sent documents to them earlier than what I received from you, they might not have it in front of them, so.
Right, would it be not included in this electronic?
It would not, no.
Okay, didn't think I saw a document like that.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
I am a neighbor and I expected to testify. So-
Okay, that's great. Well, I'll have you stand up and be sworn in as well, because that's why I asked. I want everybody who may testify to get sworn, and so that's why I asked the question.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I may ask, I have some questions and I may testify, so should I get sworn in also?
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Let's get everybody sworn who may potentially testify in this matter. Go ahead. If you think you might, you're here for this case, come on up, raise your right hand and get sworn. So what I don't want to have happen is we go ahead and testify and then somebody says, well, wait a minute, I didn't get to say anything because you weren't sworn. So at an abundance of caution, if you might say something or have something to weigh in on, please stand up so we can swear you, so we won't have to do that again. All right?
okay, after I swear everybody in, for the record, this is Tom, I'm not recorder. You two have spoken, so I'm gonna get your names. Everyone else, I hold off until, if you do come up, when you speak, I'll ask you to state and spell your name on the record. But for now, just you two since you spoke. But everybody please raise your right hand first. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you gave and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. So, sir, you spoke first, your name?
Dr. B-E-R-T, last name Miller. B-E-R-T is the first name, Miller.
Thank you. And ma'am?
Karen with a C, C-A-R-E-N, Cutler, C-U-T-L-E-R.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, sir. I'll hear from staff and planning.
Okay, so the attorneys on this can correct me if I'm wrong on these variances. There are several. Maximum lot coverage, 25% is allowed, including the porches. I believe the proposed lot coverage is 45.9%. Again, you can correct me later if I'm incorrect on that. 20% variance would be requested with the porches included. Minimum front yard, 38 feet is required. I believe that's the block face average for this block. 26.5 feet is proposed, so would be a variance of 11.5 feet. Minimum interior side yard, 10 feet is required, 6 feet, 6 inches is proposed, so it'd be a 3-foot, 6-inch variance. Minimum corner side yard, 20 feet is required, 10 feet is proposed, so it'd be a 10-foot variance. And minimum rear yard, 30 feet is required, 15.5 feet proposed, so it'd be a 14.5-foot variance requested. Just for the board's understanding, there used to be a dwelling on this site that was demolished in 2022 without permits. And a foundation has also been poured, seemingly, I believe, without permits. The property owner has been fined a significant amount of money for those violations, and those fines are kind of stayed right now to see if these variances would be approved by the board, in which case they might. Anyway, DHCD has basically told us we can go ahead with this hearing, even though there are fines outstanding. Also, there's been a disturbance of over 5,000 square feet, which would require a soil and erosion plan. I think that's it from our staff report.
Thank you.
Planning Department has no comment on this application, but does note that because the 5,000 square foot threshold for disturbance may have been crossed or will be crossed, depending upon what the board approves, there would be an afforestation plan required, forest and delineation to go with that, and there's possibly stormwater management also required on this property. That is not handled by the Planning Department, that is handled by the Department of Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Okay. So The applicant.
Yes, may I be, if I may, I'd like to just give a brief proffer to clarify a few things for the record, and then I have a witness that I'll call, but before I even get there, I'm going to ask Mr. Lanzi to speak up as well. So for the record, I'm Christopher Mudd, an attorney with Venable LLP here on behalf of the applicant who's the owner of the property. And there's a little bit of a tortured history on this one. We were here, Mr. Lanzi and I, almost a year ago. I think it was either January, maybe even last December. And we were here actually on relief that is consistent with what Ms. Witt just described. And that was for a version of a plan. Well, let me back up 1 second from there. Before we were in this room for the hearing, there actually were permits applied for and permits issued for a version of a house on this lot. And this is a proffer, and I will get through this with sworn testimony shortly, but through a mistake of the builder, the home was actually installed, or the foundation was installed in the wrong configuration on the lot. And we can explain a little bit more about why and how we think that came to be. And after that happened is sort of when we discovered the need that, with that twist, there was a need for variances. The variances that were originally applied for would have allowed for certain porches and overhangs and decks that are no longer being proposed. So we actually have reduced relief, which comes as a result of almost a year's worth of communications between myself, Mr. Lanzi, his client, and my client, whereby my client has agreed to not pursue any additional relief beyond the foundation as poured, and then also has agreed to certain, what I'll describe as private agreements between the parties relative to the way the property would be used or not used into the future. And so with that, so let me just clarify for the record what the relief is that we are here before the board today, which is a front yard averaging of 28 feet 8 inches in lieu of the required 38 feet. And I believe in May there was a revised application that was filed. I can provide a copy for the board today. A rear yard setback of 28.2 feet in lieu of the 30 feet required. A rear yard setback from the edge of deck of 18.2 feet in lieu of the required 22 feet. And then a lot coverage of 32.6% in lieu of the maximum permitted 25%. And as Mr. Ankry, who's the architect for this matter, will describe, all of that's consistent with the foundation as poured on the property.
Okay.
With that, I'd like Mr. Lanzi, if you would mind, just explaining, before I proceed, I know it's a little unorthodox, but we talked about this, that he would describe in his own words and how we got to where we are today and what the position of his client is today.
Great, thank you.
Thank you again, Neil Lanzi, on behalf of. Thank you. Neil Lanzi on behalf of Stephen Seminowitz, one of the neighbors that's been was opposed to this project when we were here, when we started about a year ago, less than a year ago. And Mr. Mudd's accurate in that we have spent a lot of time back and forth with various plans, negotiations, and the relief that he listed is accurate. It's contained in the restrictive covenant agreement, which was the ultimate resolution of those issues between my client and the applicant. And that application was, or that restrictive covenant was provided to Ms. Witt on Friday by online, and then we have a copy today, and that's dated the 16th of November, 2023. I think it is important that because some of the relief that was mentioned dealt with which plans, planning comment, as far as stand delineation, that type of thing. And that is in there very specific. This was carefully reviewed with input from engineers, surveyors, architect. I mean, a lot of input went into this. And the request or the requirement, and I know it's a private agreement, but the requirement is that the applicant submit 2 Baltimore City forest stand delineation, stormwater management, forest conservation plans, landscape plans, and we're to be kept in that loop communication-wise with anything going back and forth with the city. So it's our experts' belief that these plans are required, no matter what relief you all give today. And with that, the rest of the requirements, I believe, speak for themselves in the agreement. So my client will not be testifying, and I'm really here just as to observe.
Thank you
Thanks.
for that setup, Mr. Lanzi.
Jim is making copies of that agreement for the board, so he'll be back in a moment.
Thank you. And I do have, if you'd like, I have a copy of the revised applications filed in May. Would you like me to?
Certainly. Absolutely.
I didn't bring it. That's the application you submitted. And it's consistent with the site plan, which will, if I may, I'll go ahead and proceed with Mr. Ankry.
Did
Please
you-
do, Mr. Branco.
Did you submit an updated site plan, floor plans and stuff as
yeah.
well as
Yes.
this? Okay.
And I have those marked as Exhibit 1 here. I can give, actually, I have extras, so I can give you a copy of that
Okay.
as well.
Size, foundation on lot, other reasons.
So I'll ask Mr. Ankry to, I'm going to ask him a few questions. If I may, I'll proceed in that fashion. Is that
That's fine.
okay?
That's
Okay,
fine.
great. And Mr. Ankry may be recognizable to the board. I know he's here, certainly here more often than I am. But I'll just ask him if he would mind. I do have a copy of his resume, which I'd like to submit to the board. If I have, I can make numerous trips up there. I can give you each a package.
Frankly, if you have a package with all the exhibits in it, if
so-
you want to distribute that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I have them broken down separately, but I can, I'll just quickly put together a set for each of you.
Not a problem.
That's okay. And while I'm doing that, Mr. Ankry, why don't you just describe a little bit about yourself for the board, please?
Sure. My name is Donnie Ankry. I have a small architecture practice based in Pikesville. And, I do a lot of work throughout Baltimore City, Baltimore County, residential and commercial work. I do a lot of work in this neighborhood. And, I've been here many, many times for other projects. So I'm excited to hopefully get this one resolved today.
Okay. And
Welcome
could you
back.
talk- Sorry, go ahead. Oh, can you talk a little bit, if you will, about your practice and your education?
Sure. I graduated from graduate program from University of Maryland Architecture with a master's in 2010. I worked for a large firm in Baltimore called Air St. Gross. They're down by Tide Point for about 6 years, and I started my own practice in 2015. And been working throughout the state ever since.
Okay. And can you tell them how you came involved with this property and this project?
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, I do a lot of work throughout this, community, and the client reached out to me a couple years ago, to work on this project. I know him, know his family from prior, so we've been working closely together to develop this project.
Okay. And what specifically has been your role in the project?
So, as the architect, I'm working with the client on designing the house. Putting together the drawings that we need to get permits. We had the permits approved, and working with him on any revisions that we have to make, and then obviously taking care of applying for permits as well.
Can you talk a little bit about, before we got into this hearing room and the need for the variances, about the permit application that you helped to make?
Say that again?
The permit application that you helped to make before the foundation was poured?
Yes. So we originally wanted to avoid going through the variance process, so we designed a house that did not need a variance. But unfortunately, out of my control, the house was constructed in a 90 degrees the wrong way by accident, and as a result, it led to where we are here today. If I were to take a guess as to how that happened, the drawings, in a construction set of drawings, we have floor plans that kind of have an enlarged plan of each sheet, and then we also have a site plan. So when we drew the floor plans, originally the client was hoping to have the house facing towards Wallace, but based off of my zoning review, due to the shape of the lot, in order to avoid the variance, we had to rotate the house 90 degrees to face Strathmore. It's a corner lot. So instead of sort of, updating every single floor plan to make things kind of, on our end, when we submitted, we just updated, we showed it in the site plan, the house to be the correct orientation to avoid the variance. Whereas on the main floor plans, we're still oriented towards the bottom of the sheet. Again, it's hard to perhaps visualize. But in short, I think the builder accidentally assumed that it was still facing towards Wallace without confirming on the site plan, which is kind of what led to where we are.
Okay. So now that we have some visuals in front of the board, I might revisit some of these points. So first, let's draw your attention to Exhibit 1. Do you recognize this?
Oh, sorry, is that for me?
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
variance plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. And this is the plan that we submitted for the hearing here today, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And if you don't mind, on page 2 of this, can you just describe for the board, I know you talked a little bit about Strathmore and Wallace, can you just orient the board to how this house has been, how the foundation has been constructed on this lot?
Yeah, so in the light gray box is the footprint of the house. You'll see facing Wallace, there's two kind of bay windows on either side of those steps. We're going to call that the front of the house. So currently as constructed, the foundation was built per this site plan where the front of the house is facing Wallace.
Okay. And does this exhibit show the building footprint, or the building setbacks?
Yes, in dashed lines, you can see the building setbacks around the property. The foundation that was built, the front, or the front of the house facing Wallace, you'll see extends a little over a foot past the setback, and then in the back, it extends a little shy of 2 feet past the rear setback.
Okay. And then taking you back to page 1 of this document, does this delineates the variances or the relief that we need with required and proposed setbacks, is that right?
Yes.
On the right-hand side?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Exhibit 2, I just want to, I know we talked about your, which I haven't given you yet. We talked a little bit about your background, but is this a copy of your resume?
Yes.
Okay. Exhibit 3, can you just describe a little bit for this? I know you talked a little bit about where this property is, but can you talk a little bit about the site and the neighborhood?
Yeah, so you can see in red lines, it delineates the property lines of the neighborhood. You can see with the red pin where our subject property is. And one thing to notice is that our property is smaller than some of the surrounding neighborhoods, surrounding properties. In fact, there are some double lots. So we do have a property that's not as deep as some of the adjacent ones.
Okay. What's the zoning of the property? It's on the front sheet there.
We are zoned R1E.
Okay, and the site area?
The lot size is 12,097 square feet.
Okay. I want to now show you Exhibit 4. You described a little bit about the lot configuration, but can you talk a little bit more about what lot number are we on this exhibit?
So we are lot 7,
okay,
which is the top left corner, the corner of Strathmore and Wallace on the sheet.
Okay, and does this exhibit, how if at all does it demonstrate any uniqueness of this property compared to others in the neighborhood?
Sure. So first off, we are a corner property, so it is subject to more stringent setbacks than the infill properties. And then just to compare our lot size, looking at, for example, some of the lots to the east, lot 8, 8A, lot 9 and 10, some of these are double lots that were combined. They're a similar width, if not a little wider than us, but they're also significantly deeper than our lot.
Okay. Can you, referring back to Exhibit 3 again, can you just talk a little bit about how the proposed home on this lot, on this property, compares with existing homes in the neighborhood?
Sure. So since we're a corner property between Strathmore and Wallace, you'll see as you move towards the right, the east of our property, the houses are facing Wallace. If you flip onto Strathmore on the left side of the property, the houses are facing Strathmore. So sometimes when you're a corner lot, you kind of become there's sometimes only one specific, way that it makes sense to face, but where we are, due to the neighboring properties, honestly, facing Strathmore or Wallace would work well with the context of the neighborhood.
Okay, I'm going to refer you to Exhibit 6. Can you talk a little bit about this as well?
Yeah, so Exhibit 6 are photos of the neighboring context. And you'll get a sense, we're in a mostly residential neighborhood. A lot of the homes have, sloped roofs, some front covered porches, multi-story. So everything we're proposing is consistent with the character of the neighborhood.
Okay. And are these, I think it's evident from here, but are these photographs all along Wallace for the most part?
Yeah, so as you flip through the packet, you're moving east on Wallace, sort of further away from the property.
Okay, and then the last couple pictures, that actually goes the opposite direction from the house on Wallace, from the property on Wallace?
Yes.
Okay. So we're...
Chris, do you have an extra set?
I do. Yeah,
You
sorry.
do?
Sorry, Neil.
Sure.
Hang on a second.
I probably have most of them.
I think you do. Yep. Touch on one more. There you go.
Okay.
All right, sorry about that. Can you talk a little bit about what Rabbi Knopf's proposal is or purpose is for this house?
Yeah, so when he reached out to me to design the house, he emphasized he wanted a home for his family. He does have, thank God, a nice sized family, grandchildren, and he wants to be able to. The goal was to have a home that for his family, but also available for his grandkids and extended family to come for holidays. In the Jewish community, there's often a lot of holidays, and so it's important for him and a lot of my clients to have a home that's comfortable and suitable just to be able to host the family.
And how about the proximity of, in the Jewish community, the proximity of the home to other aspects of the rabbi's life or any Jewish person's life?
Yeah, so many in the Jewish community, since you can't drive on the Sabbath, a lot of times people pick their homes within walking distance of the synagogue that they attend, and so having a location here, being in walking distance of the synagogue that he attends is important. Picking up and moving to the other side of town or any other location would not allow him to attend the synagogue that he belongs to.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to, I think, the last exhibit we haven't talked about, which is Exhibit 5. Can you explain to the board what Exhibit 5 shows?
Sure. Exhibit 5 is the site plan that we submitted for permits and got approved for permits. You could see here.
I'm sorry, before you do that, when was that?
So this, my most revised date on this drawing was March 16th of 22.
Okay, so was this before the foundation was poured?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And was this plan set was submitted by you to Baltimore City?
Yes.
Okay. So I think you described a little bit about what your hunch was about the potential rotation of the house, but does this help explain anything to the board in that respect?
Yes, and just to describe it, so in this site plan, you'll see those two bay windows I was referring to are facing Strathmore. That was the rotation that I offered to avoid the variance. But so I guess that's the big takeaway from this exhibit.
Okay. And were there other plans involved that you're aware of that you saw that showed the house flipped? In other words, the house rotated with the front door facing towards Wallace?
So I'm not sure if it's an exhibit or not, but the floor plans, which is the enlarged version of these, were rotated 90 degrees where the bay windows are facing the bottom of the sheet, which is why I think the mistake happened.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about when did we first discuss this project?
A long time ago. I don't have a specific date, but When it came to my attention that the way the foundation was constructed, we needed a variance. I recommended to the client to reach out. I referred Chris because he's great. We work on this on other projects together. So that is when I reached out to Chris to be involved.
Okay. Well, just for the board's understanding, what would it take to effectively relocate this foundation to be rotated in the right direction? Physically, what would it take?
A significant amount of work. I mean, there's already poured, these thick 12-inch concrete walls to support the house. So in order to adjust it back to this, I mean, we're cutting out, over 120 feet of concrete wall, repouring it. It's a significant project.
Okay. Since you and I were engaged or have been working on this, what can you just describe for the board? I know Mr. Lanty talked a little bit about it, but you describe for the board from your perspective what's happened over the past year.
So over the past year, the two teams have been working well together to find a solution to be able to construct the house while keeping the foundation poured, but still being sensitive to some of the other concerns with the covered porches and other pieces. So we worked well to find a solution that works well for everyone involved.
Okay. This Exhibit 5, it shows covered porches along the outside. Are those examples of things that were eliminated over the past year to try and reduce relief?
Yes, you'll see in Exhibit 5, there's a wraparound porch on the wall side, and then on the interior side, that was something that the client really wanted, just to be able to have an outdoor space that's covered, to be able to sit outside with family. But that was a concern, and with neighbors, and so in our efforts to work something out, we eliminated those wraparound covered porches.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the variance standard in the zoning code. So the standard requires that because of particular physical surrounding shape or topographical conditions of the specific structure or land involved, an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty would result if the strict letter of the applicable requirement were carried out. How does that apply here? What is the practical difficulty here?
So for us, it's the challenge of being on a corner lot where you have the more restrictive setbacks, and being a lot that's smaller than our neighbors. That's what I would call the uniqueness for our project.
Okay, and what given that uniqueness, what's the practical difficulty here that we would have if we were to require or comply with the strict letter of the law today?
So the house would be small, too small to be able to comfortably satisfy the needs of the homeowner, to be able to have the bedrooms, kosher kitchen, the rooms he needs for his family and his extended family.
How about does the fact that the foundation exists play into your rationale at all?
It is there. It is poured. Obviously by an honest mistake, but to have to adjust what's there would be such a significant project that it probably wouldn't even be financially feasible to move forward on this. So it does play a role in it, and we are hoping we're able to keep it, because it's, as I said, to adjust the concrete that's there would be very significant.
Do you have any opinion as to whether the variance is based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or income potential of the property?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is the variance, is it based exclusively on the request for the variance based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or the income potential of the property?
No.
Why not? Well, why have we applied?
Yeah, I mean, this is a house for his own personal use. This isn't a developer building something to sell it and wanting to maximize the size, but this is a person that's looking to build a house for his family. So the intention of these variances is to satisfy those needs, not to resell and make money on it.
Okay. Do you think the grant of the variance would be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity?
Yeah, I mean, having a house, it's beautifully designed. I feel, it's going to fit very nicely in the neighborhood, and the Knopfs are a wonderful family. I've got to know him and their kids, and having them in the neighborhood, I think would be great for the neighborhood.
Would it substantially diminish or impair property values in the neighborhood?
No.
Is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code, in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. And why would you say that? What is the purpose for these setbacks?
Well, the setback, the intent of the setbacks in general is to create a certain amount of open space, gap between, space between neighbors, to as you're driving down the street, not to have the house too imposing on the sidewalk in the street, but how the foundation was poured is very minimally over those setbacks. So so I would say that what we're requesting is still in the spirit of the zoning code, since we're not significantly beyond what the zoning setbacks are.
Okay. And if you know, would the resulting home constructed on the foundation as poured, would that be consistent or inconsistent with other homes in the area with regard to setbacks and variances and things like that?
So it would, I'm aware of at least one other home that has received, a setback variance request on this in this neighborhood, and the setbacks that were, approved were significantly greater than, they were built much closer to the property than what we're proposing. So I would say that our house is consistent with the existing houses in the neighborhood in terms of more, and they're more similar to it, whereas there has been other properties that have been approved for greater requests.
Okay. And would the variance, if granted, be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare, or in any way be contrary to the public interest, in your opinion?
No.
Okay.
Counsel, can I inquire?
Sure, please.
Okay. Mr. Ankry, the uniqueness of this property, I understand from the application and partially from your testimony, is based on lot size. What about the lot size makes it unique?
Just being smaller than some of our adjacent properties.
Okay. And when you say surrounding properties, what area are you comparing the lot size of this house to versus how far out are we talking?
So just looking at Exhibit 3, the properties that that jump out to me would be the ones to the right, to the east.
Hang on one second, let me get through it again. Okay.
Actually, hold on. Sorry, I think a better exhibit would be Exhibit 4. Just, so we're lot 7.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so for example, directly to the right of us, there's lots 8 and 8A. Those were combined into single lot 8.
Okay.
That's 100 feet wide, but it's 150 feet deep. Same thing with lots 9, 10. And then if you look on the opposite side of the alley, on the south side of us, along Park Heights, lots 1, 2 to 6. Those are all similar widths, but they're 195 feet deep. So there's much.
Okay, lot number 14 on Exhibit 4.
Mm-hmm.
To whom does that belong? Is that somebody else's lot?
I'm not sure who it belongs to.
But that's a smaller lot than the one at issue, right?
It is smaller, yes.
Okay. So in addition to lot size, uniqueness is evidenced by, in your opinion, what else?
The other item I mentioned is the fact that we're a corner lot.
Okay.
So
tell me about why that makes a difference, or what makes it unique being a corner lot.
So typically if you were an infill lot, the side setbacks would be 10 feet on either side.
Mm-hmm.
But by being a corner lot, that street side setback increases to 20 feet. So there's an extra 10 feet imposed on the property that limits the size of the house that can be built.
On both Wallace and Strathmore.
Well, yeah,
10 feet.
well, either way, every property is going to have the street front setback,
Yes.
which is 30 feet. So that's a given, but it's that street side that is more imposing by being on a corner lot.
Okay, got it. And you also indicate that the foundation being poured on the lot is now makes it unique.
Yes, yes.
Were you able to estimate a cost, or what it would cost to undo the foundation?
I'm not a general contractor, so I did not go through the exercise of personally, but having worked in these projects for many, many years, I mean, it would be a significant amount of money. Like, again, I don't want to throw a number and just take a stab, but it's something that it would be highly unproportional to the cost of the house.
Would it be prohibitive in order, basically, if you use the money to undo the lot, undo the foundation, is there anything left to do to build a house?
I mean,
Pour another
I can't
foundation
speak
into
for the client's finances, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the client has to spend the money on adjusting this concrete. There's probably nothing left to build on top of it, so it would kill the project.
And this is since you're Mr. Mudd's only witness, I'll ask you, was there ever any relief sought from the builder who poured the foundation?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of either.
Yeah.
It's a fair question, but I'm not aware of that. I mean, I think frankly, we're hopeful that we can get through this, and we've spent the past year trying to work with the neighbors, or at least the one who was represented by council.
Sure.
In hopes that the board would see that way. Who knows what happens if we're denied? There may be repercussions.
Right. All right. Okay. Thanks.
I have
And
a
that's, I'm sorry, that is the extent of the uniqueness factors. I just want to be sure.
That's everything I have.
Okay.
I heard the other variance approval standards gone through, but I could have completely missed it. But what about the self-created hardship aspect under section B2? Can you explain why it's not a self-created hardship?
May I?
Yeah, whoever wants to.
I think that section actually says that it's an intentional created hardship, which is not the case here. So our explanation would be that this was without intent and it was a mistake. And I know that oftentimes self-created hardship is in the legal world it can be prohibitive in the variance. I think the code refers to intent, which was not the case here.
That's all the questions that I had for you just now. Is that your
It
presentation?
is. The only thing I would just say in closing for the board, and I understand the board is, this might be a difficult case for the board, and we'll see what folks in the community have. There may even people have questions for Mr. Anker, which is fine. One thing I want to make clear is that the agreement that we went through, which includes several promises by my client relative to things like lot consolidation and not seeking rezonings and things like that. These are promises he's making for years to come. In the event that a variance were denied, and in an event that our client was required to rip up the foundation and were he able to do that and rebuild in a different configuration, all of that goes away.
Right.
So he'd be able to build, and whatever concerns you may hear from other folks, he'd be able to build a house here without restriction. And we think that it actually is a great benefit to the community, and I think that's why I'm pretty confident that's why Mr. Lanzi was able, and his client allowed us to work together over the year, because he saw the benefit in trying to get these additional restrictions in place for the privilege of my client being able to proceed on with the home consistent with the foundation as poured.
Counselor, I have to say that I understand that you believe that the law anticipates intent when it discusses the self-created hardship. But why should the BMZA be the entity that gives you relief for the improperly poured foundation rather than the courts? Because you do have a contract with the person that poured the concrete. Why should they not give you the relief for that improperly poured? Because I can't imagine we give you a variance here, and then people all of a sudden have a lot of mispoured foundations and ask us to make up for that mistake.
Understood, and it's a fair question. I'm not sure I have a great answer other than, we're here, I suppose, preying upon the board after trying to work for some time in addressing some of the neighbors' concerns. I know this board receives uncontested cases quite a bit, and I'm sure your question might go more towards that the board doesn't want to fall into a pattern of having people fix things that are problems. But I guess one thing I would say is, mistakes do happen. If there's a prevalence of that comes about and people come and try and say, oh, we did this by mistake and there was no intent, and that becomes a problem, maybe that would be the time to address it. I think here, given the circumstances, we're just hopeful that the board would be understanding of that. And from my perspective, and some folks in the community may feel differently, but from my perspective, put the community in a better position with the standpoint of this agreement in place.
Thank you. I understand your position.
Sure. Thank you.
Just to elaborate, I don't usually speak this much during hearings, but the board has just seen a case come back before them over and over and over again, different case, different neighborhood, where an entire house was built under a permit that was erroneously granted by the city. And now we're having to go back and talk about self-inflicted hardships and these standards. And so in that case, the entire structure is built, as opposed to here, it's just the foundation having been poured. But they're very similar questions being asked, I think, in those two cases. But in this case, there's a difference in who made the mistake.
Well, and to that point, because it's critical as to who made the mistake, is the builder an agent of the applicant? For purposes of who put the foundation down?
I think that's probably, yeah, sure. I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, you can impugn the applicant with that. And I would still say, what that doesn't take away is the intent element, because it was not that he went out there and said, put it in this configuration. I think it was a mix-up of plans. So while that still creates a self-created hardship, it's not an intentional self-created hardship.
Okay.
Sure.
Just to add one note, I'm not familiar with the other case, but for example, if someone applied for an addition, and decided to go and knock down the house and build a new house, or they did something significant, I understand that. Here we had a permit for a new house. It was accidentally rotated by honest mistake, and we're a little bit over the setback, but it's I wouldn't say it's an apples to apples comparison because of we had a permit to do the house, whereas the other case could be a much significant difference from what was permitted and what was actually done.
Yeah, I mean, not to talk about this other case too much, but the city issued a permit mistakenly, basically, and said you can build 30 feet back, when really the setback was 40 feet. And so the city granted the permit, they built the house under that permit, and then the neighbors complained after the house was already built and said the house should be 40 feet back instead of 30. And so we're in a position now of just talking about variances.
Raising the house or
Talking
not,
about-
depending on the
Tearing down a house, basically.
applying the standards for variances. And I would say oddly enough, but it's not odd, the appellate courts several times now have reminded the board that there needs to be a sort of a strenuous inquiry on the issue of self-creation of the practical difficulty and the undue hardship. I mean, I take it, given that the foundation is poured, there's no way to build the house on it without getting the variances, which is what you're here seeking.
This is why contracts have indemnification clauses for situations like this. And I don't want to harp on it too much because we still can grant you the variance. But no, it's just one factor in a multitude of other factors we have to consider. So, but that is something I'm personally struggling with.
I guess, I mean, you may not have the answer to this since you're not the owner of the property, but did the owner of the property enter into a legal binding contract with the contractor that poured the foundation?
I don't know. I'm not aware of it.
What I haven't seen is a statement or acknowledgement from the contractor or builder that it was, maybe that he was wrong or that there was a miscommunication. Is the builder taking a position that, well, I did the right thing? I put it where it was supposed to be.
That would be helpful. The determinant intent,
Yeah.
that would be really helpful.
That's why I raised it, because, again, taking the extension of, agency, we're building a house and we engage several professionals to assist us in doing that, one of whom is a contractor to start it off, pour the foundation. You got obviously an architect to design, for fee, to design features of the home, spec out where things are supposed to be. So it's a conglomeration of agents to build the house for this particular owner. Yeah, and of course, we have your testimony here that this was a mistake. I can't tell right now whether or not the contractor who poured it sees it that way.
But these are your plans?
Sorry,
The
what?
original plans were yours, right?
Yes.
And you're saying that according to the plans that you approved, the foundation is improper, was improperly poured.
It's rotated a different direction by accident.
Here's another question. I'm sorry, before you get to that. Was the contractor bonded and insured for the work that he or she did?
I don't know.
Because what I'm positing is there another alternative? Or is there another factor that goes to the practical difficulty or the undue hardship? If they're bonded and insured, let's hear me out, and a claim was made against the contractor and insurance covered that claim, that hardship wouldn't be to the owner. The practical difficulty wouldn't be to the owner.
It's very important. Yeah,
It
it
would come
was
out
just,
of their pocket.
it should be a longer process.
Right, it would just take longer to get the house built.
Yeah.
And I say that because there's a whole line of inquiry regarding self-created hardship or practical difficulty, like what other alternatives have been considered. And that's what the appellate courts are telling us to find out factually, the hearing, particularly with determining the issue of whether the hardship is self-created or not.
Yeah, I think building on that concern, one, even if they were to seek damages from the contractor, we may still find them here asking for the variance regardless of the outcome of that. Because there probably might not be any stipulations on any settlement that like, okay, now you have to come and demo and whatever. So I think that's one thing I want to point out. But then to your point, we have to be cautious of people using the zoning code as a way to circumnavigate lengthier and more costly legal pursuits. And so I think it's both and for me. Like if they did that, they could still end up here asking for the variance, and then we'd have to weigh in on that with that additional information, knowing that they pursued those other lines. But So that in itself does not, even if they don't ever choose to pursue that contractor, that in of itself does not mean that they would never come back here asking for the variance.
Yeah, I think the questions that the board's asking are the correct questions. If you designed a building and if your client had agreed upon a building and an orientation of a building, of a house, that pleased your client, and a mistake happened, I would expect that there would be an explanation from the contractor giving the reason why the mistake happened. And when we ask the questions, has there been a remedy? Has there been some kind of modification? The contractor is willing to say, hey, yes, I screwed up. This is on me. That question would be answered when confronting this board. I think that's an important information that needs to be provided, really.
I think, council, I think your comment was, we were hoping we could go here and not have to go pursue those avenues, but we aren't, variances are supposed to be rare. They're not supposed to be given out like candy. And so, maybe you have to pursue some of those other remedies or go further down that avenue before you say, hey, guys, we just need you guys to tell us we don't have to follow the law, which is essentially what a variance is. We don't have to, build by the code. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I think the hypothetical is, let's say they did pursue the contractor for damages and then that contractor filed bankruptcy or that contractor did XYZ and they weren't able to get those damages, then I could, I think, be a little more sympathetic of talking about the demonstrated personal hardship of saying, hey, we weren't able to get this done this way, and so now we have to figure out how to get the house built. So that could be one scenario
Absolutely.
that we pose to the appellate.
I'll be much more comfortable, approving these variances if we learned that, hey, you guys tried your best to figure this out before you came to us.
So you all raise excellent questions and points, and I guess maybe first I would ask whether you would entertain this, but maybe I would ask my client whether they even want me to do this. But I would ask maybe for the board to keep the record open so that we could potentially pursue those answers for you. And if we're able to get a resolution a different way, then maybe it's a letter back to Ms. Witt that says that we've withdrawn it. Maybe they get exasperated and say, we're done anyway. Or maybe we come back to you and say, hey, we tried and we failed, and you have more on your plate for that purpose.
And that's, frankly, that's very helpful because it caters to the appellate courts.
Yeah, I understand.
You guys reach agreement with anybody who objects,
Right.
Maybe it never gets appealed.
Right.
But from the standpoint of, what is the correct application of the law, it's the court's informing us what questions we definitely have to ask in order to make that proper record. And, that would be a fuller record from which to do that.
Sure.
And which to decide, so.
But before I formally make that request, may I request a brief recess to talk to my client and just to make sure that I could come back and formally make that suggestion?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. We'll just step outside. Off the record. Or
I guess it's, thank you to the appellate court. Because then you're gonna say, well, why are you asking? What else? Yeah. I think that's helpful because that case that she's referring to, we've heard it like 4 or 5 times. Yes.
Right, in this regard, yes.
They're either Two elements make it right on it. The hardship comes credibility.
Bruce and I told you that, but then Bob and it was kind of back and forth.
Whatever, front elevation.
Chris, are you gonna be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's unprepared.
That's true. They may want to speak. Those are here.
I understand.
Yeah.
Are we ready to resume?
Yes. Ready? All right. We are back on the record at 4:19.
May I proceed? Thank you for the board's indulgence. So I spoke with my client and explained my feeling about where the board was on this. And I would ask formally that the board would postpone the hearing and leave the record open for purposes of us trying to answer the questions that you raised today. I think it would be in the interest of, I guess for lack of a better term, judicial economy for us to do that so that we can hopefully provide you with either find a different solution, which I think the board might be hopeful of, or if we don't have a different solution, then we can bolster our justification for practical difficulty in hopes that that can help persuade the board. So we would ask for that.
Yes, just a couple things. One, I just want to make sure the board is very clear that I am here only on behalf of Stephen Semino. It's not the community. However, there are people from the community that made the trip, and if they need to speak today, that's obviously your discretion. And also that last point he made, that if there is another solution that doesn't require variances, I certainly would, I'm sure my client would be glad to take a look at whatever they come up with. So.
Is your microphone on?
Sorry, Mom.
The folks that are here, I guess there's an issue of they're here, they're going to testify to preserve their testimony, or whether it's even going to be necessary based on whatever it is we hear subsequently. We tend to err on the side of the second, but that it may not be necessary. Are you folks? Is there dichotomy of folks here in support of or in opposition to the application, or is everybody here in opposition? I don't know.
I have questions, and depending on the answer to my question, I would make my decision. But if they want to postpone, then if they can solve this, then, I don't need to possibly ask the question.
Okay.
And if not, and we come back, then maybe I can come back and ask my questions at that time.
To that point, Mr. Chair, my suggestion would be I'll commit, if we do have to come back,
Yes,
I'll commit to working with Mr. Lanzi, and I can get the contact information from anyone who's here. So we set on a date when folks can be here.
Sure.
Or arrange for folks to provide whatever written testimony they want. And I wouldn't push ahead without assurances that these folks would have their day before you.
Great. Is that fine, Mr. Ramsey?
That's fine for me, but I don't, again, don't represent them, so it's really up to them.
Well, it's actually up to us.
Yeah, that's true.
Excuse me, can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you been sworn? Have you been sworn? Okay, can you state your name and spell it?
Rabbi Yuval.
And can you spell it?
come to the microphone, please?
I guessed
Go ahead, can you spell your name, sir?
Rabbi Yuval Nof.
Spell, please.
Yuval Nof, Noff. You know, when I become 13, my father, he should rest in peace, that he came to Israel by camel for 6 months.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you to pause. Does this reference the postponement?
Yeah, I would like to
What?
speak for 1 minute, if it's possible.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
I think he's suggesting that you consider not speaking because we're working on whether or not we're going to be postponing, and he's deciding whether to allow other folks to speak or not.
I would like for 1 minute to speak, if it's possible.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I think we ought to let the board make that
Okay, I would like to wish you happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Merry Christmas to you. I left my wife at home. She finished chemo, and we want very much to have this house for my wife, for my family.
Thank you,
And
Rabbi.
let me, 1 minute, please respect me, because I'm talking from inside of my heart and my head.
Rabbi, if you insist to speak, he may ask and give everybody an opportunity to speak. So I think you ought to respect the chairman's
I don't
request,
think we do
please.
anything wrong to nobody if everyone talk, but I would like to
You can do
wish
it
you
at
Merry
another hearing.
Christmas.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rabbi.
It's very important for us to have this house. If you guys,
Rabbi.
God bless you, anybody can help us so we can
Thank-
build it and move in and lose less.
Rabbi,
I paid many
Rabbi.
tickets, I paid everything. Please open the heart. I just get back from Israel.
Rabbi.
My son at the bar mitzvah.
Okay.
Rabbi.
And everybody can help us. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I understand it.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, just with Mr. Lanzi and the agreement and the folks testifying, I just want to make sure that Mr. Lanzi and his client connect with the community members. I think a lot of.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Lanzi, I would also ask, and this is for folks that came here to testify, if you came here to testify or have questions or concerns about the property, in reviewing this agreement, I think it would show a lot of goodwill to the community if your client would be open to reaching out to some of the folks here today and sharing some of the stipulations. I don't know where it's at in terms of agreement.
can
So
answer
that
that.
would be how, I think there's going to be a lot of, that was my question. I'll pose it as a question.
Easy answer. This agreement was provided to the community by way of their president.
Okay, great.
Before we even filed it.
Okay,
So-
great.
So that was one of the conditions.
Great. All right, thank you so
The only
much.
condition not met is they need to get the variance. If
Sure.
they don't, no agreement.
Wonderful.
All right, very well. So we'll, board in agreement to grant a postponement, and you'll take it up with Ms. Witt's office as to when you'd like to come back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's
you all.
insights and questions. Thank you.
All right, good luck to you.
We're off the record, thank you.
We're off record at 3:25.